Chapter 196. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she hooked her arm around Bei Qing's shoulder and pulled him out. When the two of them returned to the dining area, Yi Qianxian looked up and saw the two of them walking over with their arms around each other's shoulders. Suddenly, he stared coldly at the spot where their bodies touched. For some reason, he suddenly felt that Bei Qing's shoulder was an eyesore. That woman had never been so close to him before. At most, she would just touch his shoulder. Now, more than half of them were standing next to Bei Qing. The latter was stared at by his master's cold gaze and instantly felt all the hair on his body stand on end. Oh my God. Master's gaze is so scary. I didn't do anything. Why is Master staring at me like that? Bei Qing wanted to cry but had no tears. He felt that his life would be difficult when he went back. But what did he do wrong? Master should know the reason why he died. Feng Yu, on the other hand, noticed something and went over to pull him over. I thought you fell into the pit when you went to the toilet. Yi Qianxian looked coldly at Luo Qingtong and said, your alcohol tolerance can't be that bad, right? Pretend. You're still pretending. You're obviously suspecting my identity. You're just waiting for me to expose myself. You're still pretending that you don't know anything. Fine. You act, I'll act, we'll act. Let's see who can act better. Luo Qingtong had a fake smile on her face. She sat down and said, it's nothing. Brother Yi and I hit it off at first sight. When I went to the toilet, I was thinking about Brother Yi even when I was looking at the feces in the pit. I couldn't help but stay in there for a while. Brother Yi, you don't mind, right? Cough, cough, cough. When Luo Qingtong said this, Bei Qing and Feng Yu almost choked on their own saliva. Oh my God. Is the evil doctor doing this on purpose or does she not know how to speak? What does she mean by thinking about Master even when he was looking at the feces in the pit? Isn't she saying that Master is like, the same? The two of them coughed violently as they stole glances at their master. Yi Qianxian's expression froze for a moment when he heard Luo Qingtong's words, but he quickly adjusted himself. This woman had many tricks up her sleeves. Yi Qianxian had experienced it several times, so he had developed some resistance to it. It was not that easy for Luo Qingtong to disgust him. You seem to be in good spirits. I hope you can continue to be in good spirits. Yi Qianxian's voice was cold. This woman was still stubborn even now. He wanted to see how long she could keep her stubborn mouth shut. Luo Qingtong was disappointed that she failed to disgust Yi Qianxian. This man's evolution speed was comparable to a digital Tyrannosaurus Rex. She was starting to suspect that the pure and beautiful man she had met before was just an illusion. But soon, Luo Qingtong pulled herself together. Because she heard the hubbub of voices outside. Looks like that Prince Chunjiu's heir had called the people from the 5 cities warden's office over. Luo Qingtong took a look outside and instantly grinned. Then I thank Brother Yi for your auspicious words. Oh right, I know a few friends. Why don't I introduce them to Brother Yi? Come come come. Brother Yi. Come over here. Luo Qingtong pulled Yi Qianxian up and walked out with a smile. Yi Qianxian saw her pulling his hand and was distracted for a moment before he was pulled out by her. It was simply too easy to find the private rooms of those hedonistic sons. Chapter 197. At this moment, Prince Chunjiu and the others were waiting impatiently in the private room. AI, do you think that peerlessly beautiful young man will come? Is he trying to trick this prince? He rubbed his hands and fidgeted in the private room. Everyone looked at each other and didn't know how to answer. Prince, is there any meaning in this? Even if that young man is trying to trick you, do you dare to rush over and argue with them? The man in white and his 2 attendants were obviously not to be trifled with. As a debauchee, especially a debauchee who can run amok and not die, these people naturally have their own standards for judging people. They were very clear about who they could provoke and who they couldn't. It was obvious that the man in white and that peerlessly beautiful young man were existences that they couldn't provoke. Regarding this point, these people were very clear in their hearts. Otherwise, they would have rushed over to seek death. How could they wait for Luo Qingtong to come and find them? Really? This prince is anxious to death. He has already been called over, that devilishly beautiful young man better not stand him up. Otherwise, he would be beaten up by his father for nothing. Just as Prince Chun Jiao was anxiously waiting, Luo Qingtong brought Yi Qianxian into the private room. Hello everyone. I brought my brother Yi, have fun everyone. Luo Qingtong smiled at Yi Qianxian. The next second, she ran away. You! Yi Qianming subconsciously chased after her. Oh. Beauty. I'm coming. Seeing that Luo Qingtong really brought him over, Prince Chun Jiao was very excited. He rushed towards Yi Qianxian. At the same time, he waved his hand. Everyone, let's go together. He didn't forget that the young master said that his big brother liked to be simple and violent. And the more violent, the better. Under Prince Chun Jiao's command, his lackeys immediately rushed towards Yi Qianxian. They were all fearless. It was as if he had been injected with chicken blood. Beauty. Just submit to me. I promise I'll be rough. Prince Chun Jiao howled as his fat body pressed down on Yi Qianming. The latter was caught off guard. His line of sight towards Luo Qingtong was blocked, and he lost sight of her. Bang bang bang. Yi Qianming's aura exploded. Prince Chun Jiao's crown prince and the others who were rushing over were sent flying. Air. When the elites of the 5 cities' warden's office heard the commotion, they saw Prince Chun Jiao and the others being sent flying before they could rush into the private room. They were immediately shocked. How dare you hurt the crown prince? Catch him. A group of people rushed towards Yi Qianming. The latter stared at them coldly. The aura around his body surged, and he flew out with a boom. In an instant, the entire restaurant was shrouded in that terrifying aura. Everyone was so shocked that they couldn't move. The next second, rumble. One by one, the aura of power exploded. Terrifying energy waves swept out in an instant, almost destroying the entire restaurant. Under such power, no one had the ability to resist. Everyone looked at the figure floating in the sky with fear in their eyes. It was as if he was a celestial being. Not far away, Luo Qingtong turned around to take a look. She was so frightened that she quickened her pace. Chapter 198. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Luo Qingtong dashed through the alleyways. Under the effect of her eye technique, the alleys she chose were all inconspicuous. They were hard to find at first glance, but were also very easy to hide in. Luo Qingtong was confident that even if Yi Qianxian chased after her, he wouldn't be able to find her. That scared me to death. I almost couldn't get out. She patted her chest with a face full of lingering fear. That man is becoming more and more difficult to deal with. But, he clearly saw through my identity this time, so why didn't he capture me? Why did he play a role-playing game with me? Luo Qingtong recalled Yi Qianxian's expression when she drank with him, and her thoughts were inexplicably distracted. That man, it's actually pretty good to get along with him like this. But who knows if he's having a fit? Compared to placing her life and freedom in someone else's hands, Luo Qingtong preferred to have it in her own hands. Phew. I don't know how that man discovered my identity. Luo Qingtong stepped on the green bricks, green tiles, and red walls, and in an instant, her figure flew dozens of meters away. Many people didn't even see her figure. Those who saw her thought it was an illusion and just passed by in a flash. Could it be that time when I was treated in the bathhouse? Luo Qingtong thought for a long time, and that was the only possibility. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched when she thought about how she probed the man's body again and again out of curiosity. The energy she brought back almost made her explode. Could it be that at that time, she also left a trace of her energy in that man's body, so he was able to confirm her identity? Damn it, the evils she brought on herself were the hardest to bear. Luo Qingtong felt depressed in her heart. It's always like this. One day, she'll be played to death by her own curiosity. At this moment, Little Pig, who was suffocating to death in her sleeve, finally made a move. Oh my God, you almost scared me to death. Master, Ancestor. Can we stop playing like this? That man is really not to be trifled with. Don't provoke him anymore. It was really an accident. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. She didn't know that the man had seen through her identity. Otherwise, she would definitely avoid him. Alright, let's not talk about this anymore. I'll take you to get some treasures. Take out a few more of your junk. When it's full, I'll give you one. One is too little, there should be at least two. Little Pig muttered as he suddenly came to a realization. Wait, a storage ring of a few hundred square meters isn't enough for you? Where are you going? It had been holding its breath and hadn't noticed Luo Qingtong's soul-searching. Of course it's to rob. Luo Qingtong's lips curled up as she spoke. He flew towards the imperial palace of the Tianyu Empire. At the same time, in the restaurant. Rumble. Yi Qianming's figure was high up in the air. His aura raged and instantly killed all the elites of the 5 cities' warden's office. His expression was ice-cold. Under Prince Chunjiu's horrified gaze, he immediately lifted him up through the air. What did she say to you? Prince Chunjiu's body trembled. At this time, how could he not know that he had been deceived by that enchanting youth? Chapter 199. Prince Chunjiu's heart was filled with an indescribable desire to cry. He trembled as he recounted everything that Luo Qingtong told them. In an instant, Yi Qianming's aura became as terrifying as the purgatory of the netherworld. Boom! The energy in his hands suddenly exploded. In an instant, the wall near him was blasted into powder from top to bottom. The entire restaurant collapsed in an instant. Evil eye. Yi Qianming's face was dark to the extreme. His every word seemed to carry a monstrous anger that swept through the sky, making people tremble in fear just by sensing it. That pure 9th Crown Prince instantly cried out, rolled his eyes and fainted. Yi Qianming raised his hand and coldly threw him outside. He didn't make a move to kill him. This kind of trash didn't need to dirty his hands. Only that woman. That evil eye. Yi Qianming felt the veins on his forehead bulging as he thought about it. That woman was too hateful. She couldn't wait to get rid of him. She even dared to lie like this. Yi Qianming's heart was filled with anger. He took several deep breaths, but he still couldn't calm the anger in his heart. That woman, in order to escape from his hands, she really could do anything. She really angered him to death. Yi Qianming was even angrier. That woman kept saying that she admired him, but when it was time to escape, she ran faster than a rabbit. She was that afraid of him. She couldn't wait to escape from him. Thinking about how he foolishly believed that woman's words and thought that she really admired him, Yi Qianming felt that he couldn't hold back the anger in his heart. That woman, don't let me catch her again. Otherwise. Otherwise what? When Yi Qianming said this, his angry words paused for a moment. Break her legs, break her wings, and imprison her by his side? He didn't know why, but when he thought of this possibility, Yi Qianming's heart felt uncomfortable. He thought about how cunning and quick-witted that woman was, and how she looked extremely willful and evil. He thought about the various expressions she had when she met him. He thought about how all these would disappear from that woman in the future, leaving behind only a dull and obedient expression. He didn't know why, but his heart was very conflicted. That woman, although she was rebellious and had offended him in various ways, if Yi Qianming really wanted to harm her, he could have done it a long time ago. But, he couldn't bear to. Yes, he couldn't bear to. Yi Qianming's furious emotions suddenly froze. He suddenly realized that there was something wrong with his way of thinking. He couldn't bear to harm that woman. Yi Qianming's heart felt uncomfortable. How could he have such a thought? With his status and strength, how could he bear to harm's will? Moreover, a woman who had offended him. But if Yi Qianming really wanted to do something to that woman, the only thing he could think of was to capture her. As for what to do with her, he would have to. Yi Qianming's mind suddenly flashed with the words that Bei Qing said to Feng Yu. Do you think that our master really likes the evil doctor? Likes? He likes that woman? Chapter 200. At this moment, Bei Qing and Feng Yu rushed up to him. Master, the Tianyu imperial family is on their way here. We can't expose your identity. Yi Qianren was startled awake by their words and instantly broke away from the shocking thoughts that she had. However, the thought just now was deeply imprinted in his heart. I like that woman, so that's why. I like that woman. That's why I can't bear to hurt her. Yi Qianren's entire being was suddenly enlightened. He was very resistant to the word like and never thought that he would like anyone, but that woman, if it's that woman, Yi Qianren thought that it was not that he could not accept it. Let's go. Yi Qianxian's eyes were deep. Since he already understood his own feelings, he wasn't the kind of person who was pretentious and overcautious. If he liked her, he would get her. It was that woman who provoked him first. Since that was the case, she had to bear the consequences. He wouldn't let her escape. As long as she was still in the imperial capital of the Tianyu Empire, he would be able to find her. With a faint smile on his face, Yi Qianxian's eyes darkened. With a swoosh, he disappeared into the ruins of the hotel. Bei Qing and Feng Yu hurriedly followed him. At the same time, in the Tianyu Imperial Palace, Luo Qingtong was flying with Little Pig. Her speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, she had entered the depths of the Tianyu Imperial Palace. Little Pig was flabbergasted as he watched her bypass one sentry post after another without any hesitation. He almost doubted if there was something wrong with his eyes. Oh my God, can this woman be any more powerful? How did she know where those sentry posts were? Furthermore, there were even some martial emperor realm experts among them. Little Pig didn't know how Luo Qingtong knew where they were and how she cleverly avoided them. Those were martial king realm experts. Before Little Pig could finish his thoughts, he saw Luo Qingtong dodge a martial king realm expert sentry post. How did she do it? Little Pig was going crazy. Forget about the martial king. She was actually able to discover where the martial emperor was hiding and avoid him. One had to know that Luo Qingtong herself was only a martial general. Was this woman trying to defy the heavens? Holy sh*t. Little Pig's eyes were filled with shock as he watched Luo Qingtong effortlessly find the location of Tianyu Empire's imperial treasury and successfully sneak into the inner circle. It no longer wanted to find out how this woman did it. He was simply a monster. And it was the kind that was on par with that man. No wonder she could escape from that man again and again. What should we do now? After sneaking into the periphery, Luo Qingtong encountered a problem. In addition to the endless number of sentries and restrictions surrounding the royal treasury, there was actually an extremely special energy lock installed on the door of the treasury. Only the direct descendants of Tianyu's royal family could enter. Tisk. Luo Qingtong frowned. Originally, he thought that as long as he broke through the restriction, he would be able to enter the treasury, take the items, and leave. He didn't expect Tianyu's royal family to be so cautious. They even set up an energy lock. This kind of lock was made with a special energy that could automatically detect whether the person entering was a direct descendant of Tianyu's royal family. Chapter 201. Let's go. After thinking for a while, Luo Qingtong turned around and left decisively. Little Pig was dumbfounded. She left just like that? She let the imperial family of Tianyu go? This wasn't like this woman's style. Of course not. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. She let the imperial family of Tianyu go just like that? Dream on. They must pay the price. Let's go find the key. Since it was a lock, there must be a key. Luo Qingtong didn't believe that the imperial family of Tianyu didn't have a backup plan in such an important place like the imperial treasury. This was the imperial family of a super empire. The treasures and resources inside were so abundant that they could easily build a country like Dongli country. If the imperial family of Tianyu suffered a calamity, wouldn't they want to rely on these treasures to make a comeback? Therefore, there must be another way to open it except for the imperial family. Luo Qingtong's figure flitted through the imperial palace. It didn't take long for her to find the information about the imperial treasury. This was the frightening part of an ocular sorcerer. As long as Luo Qingtong didn't do anything, she could easily find the hidden place where no one could find it. Even Yi Qianxian couldn't find her with his divine sense, let alone the guards of Tianyu Empire. Under her gaze, the strict defense of the imperial palace of the Tianyu Empire was a joke. As long as Luo Qingtong wanted to, she could come and go as she pleased. Of course, the premise was that she didn't do anything and didn't expose her aura. Otherwise, the experts in Tianyu Imperial Palace would have sensed it immediately. Prince Chunjiu, Luo Qingtong murmured the information she found and her lips twitched. What kind of ill-fated relationship was this? She had just schemed against Prince Chunjiu and made him find trouble with Yi Qianxian. She didn't even know if he was still alive or not. She wanted to scheme against his father again? This Prince Chunjiu's family must have F***ked with the heavens. Otherwise, how could they be so unlucky? But even so, Luo Qingtong still quickly turned around and rushed out of the palace. Every man for himself, and the devil takes the hindmost. Moreover, this father and son pair were not good people. One bullied men and tyrannized women, while the other aided the tyrant. Luo Qingtong didn't feel guilty at all when she set up the other party. We're all the same, so there's no need to talk about innocence. It was just a case of the winner taking all. When Luo Qingtong left the imperial palace to look for Prince Chunjiu, Yi Qianxian and Beiqing Fengyu also returned to where they were staying. Master, your subordinate is incompetent. I was unable to stop the evil doctor. As soon as they returned, Beiqing and Fengyu knelt down and begged for forgiveness. They didn't expect Luo Qingtong to be so daring. By the time they came back to their senses, they had already lost track of the youth. Thinking of this, Beiqing and Fengyu both felt annoyed. Especially Beiqing. She almost asked Yi Qianxian to go back to the brothel to receive punishment. No matter. That woman is treacherous and cunning. Even if you chase after her, you may not be able to make her stay. Yi Qianxian snorted coldly. Although he understood his intentions, it didn't mean that he wouldn't pursue what Luo Qingtong had done before. That woman was really treacherous and cunning. How could he not teach her a lesson? Especially this time, she actually dared to sell him to someone like Prince Chunjiu. Thinking of this, Yi Qianxian's expression couldn't help but darken. Chapter 202. Master. Beiqing and Fengyu were shocked when they saw Yi Qianxian's actions. Was their master going to use that method that would consume a lot of energy? Did the evil doctor make him so angry? That method was even more damaging. If their master used it, he would be weakened for a long time. Was it worth it to do this for an evil doctor? Master, the evil doctor is missing. We can look for her slowly. Why do you have to? Beiqing couldn't continue his sentence. Yi Qianxian stared at him coldly and said, Beiqing, you've crossed the line. It's not up to you to meddle in my affairs. Master. Beiqing wanted to say something, but Fengyu stopped him. Master, Beiqing was just anxious. Master, using this method to search for someone will consume a lot of energy. Once you use it, your strength will drop by 50% within half a year. Not only that, but your strength will disappear 4 hours after you use it. Master, you don't have to worry about yourself, but Beiqing and I can't ignore you. Master, please reconsider. As Fengyu spoke, she pulled Beiqing to kneel in front of Yi Qianxian. Yes, Master. With your current identity, you can't lose your strength. Otherwise. Beiqing said anxiously. Before he could finish, Yi Qianxian raised his hand and stopped him. That's enough. You don't have to say any more. I have to find that woman. That woman was extremely cunning. She must have guessed that he had seen through her identity after she escaped from the restaurant. Under such circumstances, if he did not use his blood to search for her, he would not know where she would run to in the future. Yi Qianxian finally understood his feelings. Even if it was not for his injuries, he had to find that woman for the sake of his feelings. That woman? When they heard Yi Qianxian's words, Bei Qing and Feng Yu, who were ready to die to persuade him, were stunned. Wasn't their master looking for the evil doctor? How did she become that woman? The only person who could make his master speak with such a helpless tone was the young girl from the Nine Magi Mountain. The evil doctor is the girl we're looking for? Bei Qing's eyes widened. The fact that the evil medic had turned from an old man to a young man was already shocking enough. Now, his master was telling him that the evil medic was the young girl they had been looking for all this time. No wonder master's attitude towards him was so different. But how could the evil doctor be a young girl? Bei Qing's lips twitched as she recalled Luo Qingtong's every move as an evil doctor. He could not believe that the evil doctor was actually a woman. That devilish aura was overflowing, and her carefree and unrestrained appearance was nothing like a woman. Especially today, he actually sold his master to that Prince Chunjiu's heir as an escort. Such a person was actually a woman? Or was it the woman they had been looking for who could heal their master's injuries? Bei Qing's lips twitched even harder. Feng Yu was very surprised as well. Even though he did not think like Bei Qing that Yi Qianxian had feelings for the evil doctor, he did not expect the evil doctor to be a woman. And the person they had been looking for all this time. While the two of them were still in shock, Yi Qianxian had already started to move. He stabbed his finger into his chest and instantly forced out a drop of blood from his heart. He raised his hand and flicked it onto that strand of hair. Whoosh! In an instant, a ripple-like image appeared in front of Yi Qianxian. Chapter 203. Tianyu Empire's imperial capital, Yingchun Mansion. Luo Qingtong squatted outside the mansion and finally confirmed that Prince Chunjiu had entered the Hundred Flowers mansion. Like father, like son. Prince Chunjiu's son was most likely a hedonistic and willful son of Prince Chunjiu. His son had already been beaten half to death, yet he still came to this red light district to look for prostitutes. He was really a good father in a different world. However, Prince Chunjiu had nothing to do with Luo Qingtong. The reason why she came here was because she had searched everywhere in Prince Chunjiu's mansion but couldn't find the location of the key to the treasury. It seemed that Prince Chunjiu carried it with him. Seeing Prince Chunjiu swagger inside, Luo Qingtong's eyes turned slightly and followed him inside. She used the trace of power left by Tian Mingzi in her eyes and walked in without any hindrance. Seeing such a handsome and enchanting young man walking over, the guards and servants of Yingchun Mansion were stunned. They hurriedly bowed and politely welcomed Luo Qingtong inside. "Io, this young master, may I know what kind of girl you are looking for?" Luo Qingtong attracted the attention of everyone when she walked in. After all, her snow-white and devastatingly beautiful face was even more beautiful than the most beautiful courtesan. If it wasn't for Luo Qingtong's temperament that didn't seem like a girl's, some people couldn't help but want to strike up a conversation with her. Even so, there were still people who kept looking at her. Such an enchanting and gorgeous young man, even if he wasn't a girl, they were still willing to spend a night with him. Prince Chunjiu's gaze was the same. "Come. Go invite that red-clothed young man who just walked in. This prince wants to treat him to a drink." While speaking, he pushed the woman lying on top of him, causing the latter to fall down crying. "Prince." Before she could finish her words, she was impatiently dragged away by Prince Chunjiu's guards. They had seen too many of the women around Prince Chunjiu. Which one of them didn't throw them away when they got tired of them? These top courtesans of Yingchun brothel had all been with the prince for a long time. But even so, His Highness still lost it just like that. These people did not show any mercy to the fairer sex, and their actions attracted many people to look over. When they saw that it was Chunjiu, they quickly averted their eyes and didn't dare to continue watching. Luo Qingtong also took this opportunity to look at Prince Chunjiu. Before she could figure out how to get the key from Chunjiu, one of the guards walked towards her. "Young master, our prince invites you." As he spoke, he raised his hand and spread it out in front of him. His gesture of invitation was indescribably unyielding. Luo Qingtong smiled when she saw that he was ordering her rather than inviting her. Sure. Her gaze was playful. She thought that she would have to think of a way to get close to this Prince Chunjiu. She didn't expect that the other party would send himself to her door. Seeing Prince Chunjiu's hungry wolf-like gaze, Luo Qingtong revealed an enchanting and evil smile. There was no way around it if people wanted to court death. Since the other party sent himself to her door, it would be impolite for her to refuse. Chapter 204. Along the way, many people kept looking at her, but Luo Qingtong didn't care. She and the guard stopped in front of Prince Chunjiu and gave him a salute with a smile. Prince Chunjiuan. This one has admired Prince Chunjiu for a long time. I didn't expect to have the opportunity to see Prince Chunjiu here. It's really an honor. Hearing Luo Qingtong's words, Prince Chunjiu was surprised and happy. He was just thinking about what to do if this young man resisted when he called him over. Should he use the hard way first and then the soft way, or should he use both? He didn't expect Luo Qingtong to be so tactful. He didn't even open his mouth to say what he wanted, and the young man took the initiative to approach. Of course, a forceful melon isn't as sweet as taking the initiative. Thinking of this, Prince Chunjiu looked at Luo Qingtong with a different gaze. No, this prince also fell in love with you at first sight. I didn't expect Gongzi to be interested in me as well. Such a beautiful scene, why don't we? Prince Chunjiu looked at Luo Qingtong with a meaningful look. Why don't we go into the room and talk? Enjoy the boundless moonlight together? Luo Qingtong answered with a smile. She said everything that Prince Chunjiu wanted to say and didn't say. Prince Chunjiu's heart was rippling. He didn't expect this young man to be so proactive. This is good. This is very good. It saves him the trouble of using tricks. Prince Chunjiu was different from his son. He didn't like to use hard methods. He felt that it was too degrading. Seeing Luo Qingtong taking the initiative to approach him, he couldn't hide the joy on his face. Good. Then let's go into the room and talk. Enjoy the boundless moonlight together. This prince has a good treasure. I'll show it to you when the time comes. It's thick and long. I guarantee you'll like it. Prince Chunjiu's words were incomparably rippling. When the surrounding guards heard this, they all had tacit expressions on their faces. Prince Chunjiu was about to get what he wanted. TSK, they didn't know if this young man could stand the prince's wolf-like behavior. Okay. Luo Qingtong looked at Chunjiu with a meaningful smile. I also think that I will be very satisfied with the prince's treasure. Of course she liked the key to the royal treasury. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. Prince Chunjiu felt more and more that the young man in front of him was gorgeous and unrestrained. His beauty was indescribable and simply tickled his heart. He grabbed Luo Qingtong's hand and said, "In that case, let's not waste this beautiful scenery." As he spoke, he took the young man's hand and was about to walk into the private room. Your Highness really can't wait. Luo Qingtong smiled as she shook off his hand. But that's exactly what I was thinking. Then let's get started, Your Highness. Quickly get the key to the royal treasury. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. Pa! Yi Qianming crushed the water mirror in front of him. That woman. Yi Qianming was so angry that his face darkened. The image of Luo Qingtong smiling at Prince Chunjiu kept appearing in his mind. With a swish, he disappeared from the courtyard. Master. Seeing Yi Qianming's figure suddenly disappear in front of them, Bei Qing and Feng Yu were startled. Master's strength had almost disappeared by half. It was too dangerous for him to leave alone at this time. Quick! Find Master quickly. The two of them hurriedly rushed out. At the same time, in the spring pavilion. Chapter 205. Bang! Prince Chuanjiu was pushed aside by Luo Qingtong. You! Before he could get angry, Luo Qingtong said with a smile, Your Highness, it's not good to be so impatient. She looked Prince Chuanjiu up and down with an enchanting smile. Your Highness, are you sure you don't need to take a bath first? The young man's face was gorgeous. He flicked his sleeves with one hand and played with the celadone cup on the table with the other. Prince Chuanjiu felt half of his body was going to go limp when he looked at the young man with a smile. He wasn't particularly interested in men. He only had such thoughts when he saw some outstanding boys. But at this moment, looking at the enchanting young man in red in front of him, Prince Chuanjiu only felt that all the women in the world would be overshadowed by him. This young man was like a demon, like a fox. He was really unforgettable. Good. Good. Take a bath. Take a bath. Prince Chuanjiu looked at Luo Qingtong with infatuation. His heart was beating so fast that it was about to fly away. He didn't care about what she did just now. Such an enchanting young man, even if he was a little rude and unbridled, it didn't matter. What's more, the way the young man refused just now was like a spoiled cat. As Chuanjiu fantasized, he rushed into the bathroom in the cubicle. This room was built by the Yingchun house to please the customers. There were all kinds of furnishings inside, and a bathtub was naturally a must for the taste. Luo Qingtong let Prince Chuanjiu take a bath, of course, not because she wanted to develop something with him. She wanted to see where the key was most likely to be hidden. When Luo Qingtong came to find Prince Chuanjiu, she had already turned all the places related to him upside down. She was very sure that the key was on him at this moment. As for where it was hidden, it depended on what he was determined to keep it with him. According to Luo Qingtong's guess, the key was very likely to be a storage magic treasure, which was on Prince Chuanjiu's body at this moment. After all, the royal warehouse of the Tianyu Empire wasn't an ordinary place. It was the biggest foundation and reliance of the royal family of the Tianyu Empire. It couldn't be placed casually. Luo Qingtong thought. She glanced at Prince Chuanjiu's chest and saw a light silver chain without exception. Judging from Chuanjiu's physique, the chain didn't fit him at all. Luo Qingtong fixed her eyes on the chain and secretly used her Do technique. At this moment, Prince Chuanjiu, who had quickly taken off his clothes and was only left with his underwear, turned around and saw Luo Qingtong staring at his chest. His heart skipped a beat and he raised his hand to pull Luo Qingtong away. Come here. Let's take a bath together. Let's take a bath. At this moment Prince Chuanjiu, she had a target. She withdrew her eye technique and her lips twitched when she heard Prince Chuanjiu's words. Wasn't that what she said when she tricked that man earlier? She was inexplicably nervous for a moment. She thought that the man had come to find her. Let's end this quickly. She thought that the man was now in the imperial city of the Tianyu Empire. Who knew when he would come again? She'd better leave as soon as possible. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong avoided Prince Chuanjiu's hand and secretly used her Do technique. Get off me. Take it by yourself. She raised her hand to take off the chain hanging on Prince Chuanjiu's chest. Chapter 206. Who is it? The guard of Prince Chuanjiu's residence asked. This was the courtyard specially prepared for Prince Chuanjiu by Spring Pavilion. It was specially made to cater to the latter's interests. Other than Prince Chuanjiu, no one else was allowed to enter. Seeing Yi Qianming suddenly appear in front of them, the guards were all shocked. However, as soon as they spoke, there was a series of muffled sounds. Their bodies exploded into pieces of flesh and blood. Yi Qianming's eyes were cold as he stepped into the courtyard, leaving behind a mess of blood. Bang! Yi Qianming came to the main room in the center of the courtyard and vaguely heard vague sounds of pleasure coming from inside. When he heard that voice, his originally gloomy face instantly darkened a few degrees. He had heard similar sounds before. Those who wanted to climb into his bed would make such sounds when they seduced him or were aroused. Thinking that there was only Luo Qingtong and Prince Chunjiu inside, Yi Qianming lifted his foot and kicked open the door of the room. In the room, Luo Qingtong figured out the use of the silver chain. She looked up and saw Prince Chunjiu rubbing against the side of the bath like a male dog in heat. She suddenly felt disgusted and lifted her foot to kick him into the bath. A piece of trash, how dare he covet her? One had to know that Chunjiu was affected by Luo Qing's eye technique. Everything he did was what he wanted to do the most. However, with his soul being taken away, he had no consciousness and could only act on instinct. In other words, what Prince Chunjiu was doing now was what he wanted to do to Luo Qingtong in his mind. Splash. When this sound was heard, the door outside was also kicked open with a bang. Luo Qingtong was startled. She thought that the guards had sensed something and rushed in to check. She subconsciously jumped into the bath and pretended that she was bathing with Prince Chunjiu. Who is it? I'm blind, cough cough cough. Luo Qingtong stuck her head out of the water and shouted. However, when she saw the figure outside, she suddenly choked on a lot of water. Oh my God! How could it be that man? How did he find this place? Luo Qingtong looked at the man standing at the entrance of the courtyard like a demon god. She was shocked. It could only be described as 10,000 horses galloping. She subconsciously turned around to run. However, no matter how fast she moved, Yi Qianming was even faster. The moment she moved, Yi Qianming's body rushed into the water. Bang! He grabbed Luo Qingtong's hands and pressed her against the edge of the bathtub. Her entire body was facing upwards, her hands were folded together and pressed above her head. Her slender waist was held by the man with one hand, and her back was knocked against the edge of the bathtub. Because of this action, her upper body was forced up high. Yi Qianming pressed his body on top of hers and looked at her coldly. What are you doing here with him? Yi Qianming's face darkened. As soon as he entered this place, he smelled a strong scent of desire. Although he knew that nothing would happen to this treacherous woman, he still couldn't help but ask. Luo Qingtong was thinking about how to break free from Yi Qianming's grip and escape successfully. When she heard this, she immediately said without thinking, "Playing." She replied straightforwardly, but Yi Qianming's face instantly darkened. Playing? His eyes were cold, playing with something thick and long? You're really in the mood. You don't even let go of such a thing. Chapter 207. Thinking of the words he heard in the water mirror, Yi Qianming's heart burned with anger. It was fine if this woman treated him this way. But she still used the same method to treat others? Was she so shameless? Yi Qianming didn't know what he was angry about, but when he thought of how Luo Qingtong treated him the same as others, he felt a burst of anger in his heart. This woman even said that she admired him. In the end, she didn't know how many times she had said this to others. The more Yi Qianming thought about it, the angrier he became. He raised his hand and was about to lift Luo Qingtong up. The latter was already stunned by his words. Wow, thick and long. How did this man know? Could it be that he really could fly in the sky and burrow into the ground and was omnipotent? Just when Luo Qingtong almost choked on her own saliva, she felt Yi Qianming's movements. Her heart suddenly trembled and she quickly regained her senses. No. She couldn't be caught by this man. Whether it was losing her life contract with the little pig or being caught by this man to teach her a lesson, Luo Qingtong didn't want this. Her freedom and life could only be controlled by herself, and could never be controlled by anyone else. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed with a bloody light. Yes. I just like thick and long things. What's wrong? It was just that this thick and long thing was different. Who didn't like the key to the treasury? She didn't mind a few more. But even though she thought this in her heart, Luo Qingtong deliberately said it in an ambiguous tone. She raised her eyebrows slightly and took advantage of Yi Qianming's position to lean towards the man. Lord cares so much and can't wait to rush over. Could it be that you're jealous? Or does the honorable lord want to replace him? Since her identity had already been seen through by the other party and she was caught on the spot, Luo Qingtong simply revealed Yi Qianming's identity. She smiled enchantingly and approached Yi Qianming. The young man's appearance was both male and female, charming and enchanting, giving people an indescribable sense of beauty that was hard to distinguish between a man and a woman. It was a kind of temperament that was emitted from the inside out. It was fatal like a tempting poppy flower, and it was filled with a demonic aura of temptation. Yi Qianming watched in a daze. His grip on Luo Qingtong loosened slightly. Sensing that his strength had loosened, Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed with a bloody light, and the smile on her face became even more enchanting and wanton. Actually, Lord really likes it when I do this, right? As she spoke, her entire body was pressed tightly against Yi Qianming. In the past, the man would have pushed her away. Yi Qianming didn't like people getting close to him and he didn't like people touching him even more. But this woman, Yi Qianming looked at Luo Qingtong's face that was getting closer and closer. His expression didn't change, but the light in his eyes was getting deeper and deeper. At this moment, Luo Qingtong pulled her hands out of the man's grasp. Yi Qianming's eyes flashed fiercely. Just as he was about to move, Luo Qingtong hugged his neck. Lord also seems to be looking forward to it. Since that's the case. Luo Qingtong approached him with an enchanting smile. In the next second, the bloody light in her eyes flashed and she jumped back. Bang! Luo Qingtong hit 3 air walls. I knew you wouldn't be so obedient. Yi Qianming snorted coldly. She deliberately seduced him and lowered his vigilance so that she could take the opportunity to escape. She really thought that he was defenseless. Chapter 208. Her warm touch clung to his cold skin. That sweet scent flowed from the place where their lips were pressed together. Yi Qianxian's eyes were filled with shock. He never expected that the moment Luo Qingtong hit the air wall, she would use the air wall as a stepping board and leap towards him. Yi Qianxian had always been on guard against Luo Qingtong's tricks. This woman was treacherous and cunning. She was as cunning as a fox and as cunning as a demon. Yi Qianxian told himself that no matter what tricks this woman played, he would never let his guard down. He would never give her a chance to escape. Therefore, even when Luo Qingtong was so tempting, his mind had always been clear. But who would have thought that Luo Qingtong would make such a move? Yi Qianxian had always thought that Luo Qingtong wanted to escape, and he had always been on guard against her. However, no one would have thought that her escape was only a facade. Her target was actually him. Yi Qianxian was caught off guard and was fully embraced by Luo Qingtong. When those soft and fragrant lips were pressed against his mind instantly went blank. The man held great power and influence. His power was world-shaking and boundless. Before today, he had never thought that there would be a day when he would be forcefully kissed by someone. Moreover, he couldn't reject it. If it had been anyone else, they would have been sent flying the moment they pounced on him. But Yi Qianxian subconsciously restrained his violent aura the moment Luo Qingtong pounced on him. He didn't have time to think about the special treatment he had for Luo Qingtong and the implications of his subconscious action. The girl's soft and fragrant tongue had already slid into his mouth from his slightly opened lips. Buzz! Yi Qianxian had originally regained some clarity of mind, but because of Luo Qingtong's action, he instantly became muddled again. He had wanted to push her away, but now he was hugging her tightly. Yi Qianxian's innate sense of power and male instincts allowed him to quickly turn the tables the moment Luo Qingtong invaded his mouth. He went from plundering to counter-plundering. He grabbed Luo Qingtong's waist with his big hand and lifted her onto his body with a strong force. Yi Qianxian was standing in the middle of the bathtub. With a height of nearly 1.9 meters, even if the man was standing in the bathtub, the water would only reach his crotch. His clothes were more than half wet from rushing into the bathtub just now. At this moment, the high-quality material of the clothes displayed its excellent water absorption and adhesion. It clung tightly to the man's body, perfectly outlining his broad back and strong and powerful figure. Because of the chase with Luo Qingtong just now, the front of Yi Qianqian's shirt was slightly open, revealing his sexy collarbone and strong chest. Luo Qingtong was pulled up and straddled his waist. Her entire body was pressed tightly against his. From the side, the two figures were entangled and ambiguous. The tall and handsome man and the devilishly gorgeous young man reflected the silhouettes of the two under the bathtub's light. It was as beautiful as a painting. But very quickly, this picturesque scene was broken. Yi Qianqian's body suddenly stiffened. He stood in the bathtub and looked angrily at Luo Qingtong, who had struggled out of his arms. He couldn't tell if he was more angry or reluctant. Chapter 209. Yi Qianqian's heart was filled with anger, but Luo Qingtong's heart was filled with depression. Phew. She struggled out of Yi Qianqian's embrace. The first thing she did was to take deep breaths. Wasn't this man's kissing technique a bit too good? She almost couldn't breathe and fainted from his kiss. If that was really the case, then she shouldn't even think about running away. She could only wait for this man to catch her. It was so scary. His reaction was clearly very inexperienced at the beginning. Luo Qingtong thought as she gritted her teeth in anger. Could it be that this kind of thing could be self-taught? As she thought gloomily, she couldn't help but raise her hand to slap her cheeks. The youth's face was crimson red, and his eyes were filled with the amorous feelings of spring. His evilness revealed his beauty. As Yi Qianqian watched, his body felt cold and hot. He couldn't describe what he was feeling. Let go of this sovereign, he said with a cold gaze. In his heart, he secretly made up his mind. As long as he could break free from the shackles and catch this woman, the first thing he would do was to tie her 4 limbs up. Let's see what kind of trouble she can cause. Yi Qianqian didn't know how this woman could play so many tricks. Moreover, it wasn't the same every time. It was simply impossible to guard against. How is this possible? Luo Qingtong looked at him with the corners of her eyes slightly raised. Because that pair of sparkling eyes were still filled with the light of spring, it was exceptionally dazzling and captivating. Let go of you and let you catch me again? Luo Qingtong said as she lightly adjusted her red clothes. She walked in front of Yi Qianqian and patted his face with a smile. That won't do. My lord, you'd better stay here obediently. You'll be able to move in 2 hours. Don't worry, this acupoint sealing technique won't harm you at all. In fact, it's beneficial to you. I say, you're too careless. Every time I bump into you, you're either covered in injuries or a pile of injuries. This time, you've directly crippled half of your strength. Fortunately, you met me. Otherwise, let's see what you're going to do. Luo Qingtong didn't know what this man was thinking. You're still running around outside with half your strength crippled. If it wasn't for the fact that she had discovered this earlier, she wouldn't have thought of sealing his acupoints to prevent him from escaping. One had to know that with this man's strength, it was almost impossible for her to successfully hit his acupuncture points. It was only because he had wasted more than half of his strength, coupled with the fact that she was familiar with the weakest parts of his meridians and had forcefully kissed him, causing his mind to waver, causing him to let his guard down, that they were able to succeed. Otherwise, he would definitely die here. Yi Qianqian ignored her. Who did she think caused his strength to be crippled by more than half? If it wasn't for her, would he have gone through so much trouble? Yi Qianqian's eyes were cold as he circulated the energy in his body. However, the strange thing was that no matter how he probed, he couldn't find any other power in his body. This woman, what kind of method did she use to restrict his movements and make him unable to investigate? Yi Qianqian felt indescribably depressed. I'll say it again. Let go. His voice became colder and colder. It was like the snowy plains of the northern kingdom, where thousands of miles of snow were falling. I'm not letting go. Luo Qingtong wasn't afraid of him. This man was just a paper tiger right now. He was just shouting fiercely. If she really let him go, she would be the one who would die. I say, don't waste your time. This is a unique acupoint sealing technique that I created. With the condition of your meridians, you won't be able to undo it. It'll be fine when the time comes. Chapter 210. Luo Qingtong pondered for a moment before jumping into the water and carrying him onto the bed. The water in the bathtub was too cold. It was fine to soak for a while. But if he soaked for too long, he would inevitably fall sick. Especially since this man's meridians were not good and his strength was suppressed by her, he could not use his strength to protect his body. At that time, the injury to his meridians would definitely worsen. Luo Qingtong had no intention to become enemies with this man. Moreover, although this man had schemed to catch her, he had never hurt her. He even helped her resolve several crises. All right. She had tricked him. But this could be considered as helping her. Therefore, Luo Qingtong did not want to hurt him. Enough. Luo Qingtong moved step by step and threw Yi Qianxian onto the bed. She was almost paralyzed. So heavy. Why did you grow so tall and strong? She was about to be crushed to death. Originally, she saw his tall and thin body and thought that he was not heavy. She did not expect. Yi Qianxian looked at her disgusted expression and the veins on his forehead were about to explode. He looked away and did not want to pay attention to her. He was really going to be angered to death by this woman. What made Yi Qianxian even angrier was that the kiss just now was just a part of this woman's plan. It was just a plan. She did not want to kiss him. And he still, Yi Qianxian was half dead from anger. Luo Qingtong's mood was indescribably good. After settling Yi Qianxian, Luo Qingtong thought for a moment and jumped into the bathtub. She fished Prince Chunjiu out and woke him up. Then, she directly used her eye technique to give him a psychological hint and let him continue what he was doing just now by the side of the bathtub. This way, if there was someone who was worried and came to check, this side could be deceived. As for the dead guards outside, Yi Qianxian killed them too cleanly. Luo Qingtong did not need to clean them up. Just cover up the blood on the ground. After settling everything, Luo Qingtong licked her lips and waved at Yi Qianxian who was lying on the bed with his eyes closed. She smiled and said, "Goodbye, Sir Lord. I'll never see you again." Luo Qingtong laughed happily, but Yi Qianxian's blood vessels were about to burst. After Luo Qingtong left, he opened his eyes and looked at Prince Chunjiu who was rubbing himself to the point that he was about to bleed. Then, he heard the moans that stung his ears and eyes. His heart was filled with anger. It was about to explode. That woman. Yi Qianxian gritted his teeth. But when he thought of the kiss just now, his body felt a little hot. Yi Qianxian had never seen a woman like Luo Qingtong in his entire life. It was really, Yi Qianxian gritted his teeth and couldn't find an accurate word to describe that woman. After dealing with Yi Qianxian, Luo Qingtong changed her clothes and easily left Chunlu. Prince Chunjiu's guards were almost all killed in an instant. Not even the slightest bit of news spread. And no one dared to disturb Prince Chunjiu's pleasure. Luo Qingtong estimated that until dawn, no one would find out what happened to Prince Chunjiu. She had enough time to empty the treasury of Tianyu's imperial family. By then, she could leave easily. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong was very satisfied. She jumped and rushed in the direction of Tianyu's imperial palace. Chapter 211. Not long after she left, a group of blood-red figures appeared in the sky above Tianyu Empire's capital. They all had black masks on their faces and wore the same black clothes. The magnetic field around them was distorted, making it impossible to detect their aura. 10 people appeared in the sky above Tianyu Empire's capital. Their aura was majestic and fierce, but they didn't attract anyone's attention. The leading man was tall and sturdy. There were 9 blood blades tattooed on his chest. It was especially conspicuous on his black clothes. Supreme Assassin Pavilion's top 9 blades assassins. Saint Realm Expert. If someone saw this scene, they would definitely be unable to help but exclaim out loud. Such a supreme expert actually appeared in the sky above Tianyu Empire's capital. Are you sure the target is here? Yes. The news came a few days ago. Because we were waiting for Master Nine Blades, we didn't make a move. The other assassins all had 7 or 8 blood blades tattooed on their chests. They were very respectful to the leading expert. The assassins of the Supreme Assassin Pavilion came from all over the world. When they gathered together, everyone's identities were hidden. No one knew each other's identity. They only relied on their own identity and the ranking of the Assassin Pavilion to determine their subordinates. The leading expert was a 9 Blades assassin. Naturally, he was in charge of the situation. Okay, spread out and search for the target. The 9 Blades assassin ordered. Yes. The assassins nodded and spread out to search the capital of the Tianyu Empire. And none of this was noticed by any of the experts guarding the imperial capital of Tianyu. Swish swish swish. Luo Qingtong's figure flashed through the imperial palace of Tianyu Empire. She had been here once and was familiar with the path. In a short while, she had already reached the entrance of the imperial treasury. There were all kinds of sentries and guards. However, they were useless against Luo Qingtong. There was once a world-renowned theft organization that publicly announced that if Luo Qingtong became a thief, their organization would be forced to disband. Because no one could compare with Luo Qingtong's theft skills. They couldn't compete with her strength at all. That was simply cheating. However, even though Luo Qingtong enjoyed such praises and continued to receive invitations from various countries' secret service organizations and dark forces, she had no intention of joining any of them. She only lived for herself. It was the same in his previous life, and it was the same in this life. Done. After easily deciphering the way to use the silver necklace, Luo Qingtong gently twisted her fingers, and the necklace melted into a silver key in her hand. Sure enough, it's thick and long. Luo Qingtong looked at the key and smiled with interest. Royal Treasury. She was here. Luo Qingtong smiled and inserted the key into the keyhole of the door. Instantly, ya! The energy lines on the surface of the shield kept moving and quickly formed a rune pattern. In the next second, there was a light, ka, sound, and the door opened a crack. Luo Qingtong jumped in. Just as she entered the imperial treasury, several blood-red figures descended from the spring fragrance brothel outside the courtyard that Prince Chunjiu had booked. Chapter 212. The target is in there. The Supreme Assassin Pavilion had a way to find their target. From what they could sense, Yi Qianren's aura was in that courtyard. Let's go. That 9 Blades assassin waved his hand fiercely. In an instant, the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion, who had gathered from all directions, rushed into the courtyard and approached the main room in the center. Master. Bei Qing and Feng Yu, who had been searching for their master outside but couldn't find him, suddenly felt that Yi Qianren was in danger. They immediately determined his location and rushed over. In the main room, Yi Qianren, who had been lying on the bed with his eyes closed and constantly attacking his acupuncture points to find the method Luo Qingtong used to imprison him, suddenly opened his eyes. Prince Chunjiu, who was beside the bathtub, was already foaming at the mouth under Luo Qingtong's eye technique. Yi Qianxian's eyes skipped over him and looked at the closed door and window. Streaks of hidden killing intent condensed outside the doors and windows, and indistinct black shadows gathered. The next second, boom boom boom. Streaks of violent aura suddenly burst out, and the closed door and window exploded in an instant. Nearly 10 figures rushed in from outside. The killing intent was biting cold, and the snowy light was like a knife. Luo Qingtong rushed into the royal treasury and saw mountains of resources without exception. These resources were collected by the royal family of Tianyu, and they could be used as the foundation of any low-level country's treasury. Luo Qingtong estimated that even the treasury of a middle-level country couldn't be better than this. These were all good things. She was worried about how to improve the Luo family's strength. These things were compensation for the Luo family and the original owner's mental trauma. Luo Qingtong didn't feel guilty at all when she took them. Especially after knowing that grandfather Luo failed to break off the engagement and was humiliated. The royal family of Tianyu was really powerful. The Tianyu Empire was rich and powerful. The Luo family couldn't afford to offend him. Luo Qingtong sneered. Today, she was going to turn them into a pauper royal family. Luo Qingtong immediately released Little Pig. Previously, when she went to the spring fragrance brothel, she deliberately put it back into the 9-story exquisite pagoda to prevent it from spoiling her plans. Looking at it now, that was a very wise decision. At that time, that man suddenly came looking for Little Pig. If he was caught by him, then it would be troublesome. Get to work. Don't leave a single one alive, she said to Little Pig. When he came out, each of his 4 trotters was wearing a storage ring that Tian Mingzi had destroyed. He roared and rushed toward the mountain of resources and treasures. Swish, swish, swish. Wherever Little Pig went, they plucked the feathers of the wild goose. Not to mention those resources, even the decorative pillars outside and the luminous pearls on them were not spared. Luo Qingtong watched as Little Pig swept through the treasury like a gust of wind. Wherever he went, everything was smooth and shiny. The corner of her mouth twitched. Previously, she was afraid that Little Pig wouldn't accept the Tianyu Empire's treasures because they were too low-level. Now, it seemed that she was thinking too much. This pig was an expert at robbing and robbing. She didn't need to worry about it at all. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong activated her eye technique and searched for the secret room where the treasures were kept. That was the most important place for the royal family of Tianyu. Found it. Chapter 213. Swish. She abruptly turned around, looking outside the treasury in shock. That man. The formation she set up in that man's room was triggered. He's in danger. Although Luo Qingtong sealed Yi Qianxin's acupoints before leaving, she didn't feel safe leaving him there. She deliberately left a formation in the room with that man's bed as the center, enveloping the entire room. It could trap or kill. At this moment, she sensed that the array formation had been activated. And in a short time, several nodes were destroyed. Clearly, the intruder was very strong. What should she do? Luo Qingtong's expression changed. She stood in front of the secret chamber of the royal treasury. The secret room was heavily guarded. With Luo Qingtong's eye technique, it was impossible for her to open the secret room in such a short period of time without anyone noticing. Unless she directly broke the formation. But if she did that, the experts of Tianyu's royal family would definitely be alerted. What should she do? The blood-red light in Luo Qingtong's eyes kept changing. She was a very self-centered person. She always cared about her own gains and losses and didn't care about the lives of others. One could say that she was cold and cruel, but Luo Qingtong was used to living for herself. In order to achieve her goal, she could throw away her principles. In order to survive, she could do anything. With a heaven-defying ability, Luo Qingtong had always been coveted and hunted by the world. She couldn't even count the number of life and death tribulations she had gone through. She once swore that she would never have any extra sympathy. He would never put himself in danger because of others again. But that man, Luo Qingtong clenched her teeth. Reason told her that the most important thing she should do now was to open the secret chamber and take all the treasures inside. That way, the royal family of Tianyu would be so distressed that they wouldn't have the time to bother the Luo family. As for that man, he might not be in danger. But what if? What if that man? Luo Qingtong was indescribably anxious. She knew that she was right to leave that man alone. That man's strength was so strong, who knew how powerful his enemies were? With her current strength, it would be extremely dangerous for her to participate in a battle of that level. However, she was the one who had fixed that man there. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong couldn't help but curse in a low voice. She suddenly turned around and rushed out of the treasury. I really owe that man. He came to find trouble with her, but she still had to go back and save him. Truly, whoever experienced it would suffer. It wasn't easy for her to enter the royal treasury, but she wasn't able to obtain anything that could shake the foundation of Tianyu's royal family. What a huge loss. If they missed this opportunity, the royal family of Tianyu would be on their guard. They wouldn't be able to succeed so easily next time. That man was her nemesis. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she dashed out of the palace. Just as she was rushing over, in the courtyard reserved by Prince Chunjiu in the spring pavilion, a commotion broke out. Yi Qianxian lay on the bed and stared coldly at the blood-red figures trapped in the formation. Supreme Assassin Pavilion. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the iconic blood-red patterns on their chests. Right at this moment, with a loud bang, the entire array formation was completely destroyed. The assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion looked at the man lying on the bed with murderous intent in their eyes. Chapter 214. Master. Bei Qing and Feng Yu arrived just in time and stood in front of Yi Qianxian. Master, how are you? Bei Qing rushed over to fight with the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion. Feng Yu, on the other hand, rushed to Yi Qianxian's side. I can't move. Yi Qianxian's eyes were cold. That woman had sealed his acupoints. He didn't know how she did it, but he couldn't undo it no matter how hard he tried. He could only wait for 2 hours to pass. Watching the battle in the room, Yi Qianxian narrowed his eyes. These people's strength wasn't low. If it was any other day, he could kill them all in minutes. But today, swish swish swish. Luo Qingtong's figure moved quickly. However, just as she left the treasury, she felt something was wrong. Wait, why was she so stupid? Saving that man and robbing Tianyu's imperial family's treasury didn't conflict. She was really led into a ditch by that man's emergency. She could have just robbed the treasury and ran away. At the same time, he could also use this opportunity to get the imperial family of Tianyu to deal with that man's enemies. Why didn't she do such a good thing? Why did she run off to be a lone hero? Really? It's all that man's fault. Her brain was in a mess because of him. Luo Qingtong thought about it and quickly ran back. At this time, Little Pig had already cleaned out the treasury. Seeing Luo Qingtong run out and come back, it jumped onto Luo Qingtong's shoulder and grabbed her clothes with its little hooves, asking, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to loot the Imperial Treasury's secret room." Luo Qingtong raised her head as she spoke. She saw that the surroundings were so bright that even a gust of wind could cause it to spin. Her lips twitched violently. "You're really something." Not to mention the items in the Imperial Treasury, not even the pillars were left for Tianyu's imperial family. This pig's posture of plucking its hair was really good. "That's right, Grandpa Pig, I used to do a lot." "Damn, are you crazy?" Little Pig's eyes widened as he watched Luo Qingtong dash to the front of the royal treasury's secret chamber and throw a punch at it. Oh my god. What's wrong with this woman? Did he eat explosives? Would they still be fine after this punch? Tianyu's royal family would explode at any moment. Why did she have to take things so hard? Little Pig felt that whenever he was together with Luo Qingtong, he would never be able to understand her brain. No wonder that man was tricked again and again. He couldn't be blamed for being too stupid, but this woman was too difficult to deal with. Thinking of this, Little Pig inexplicably sympathized with Yi Qianxian. "Of course I'm not crazy." Luo Qingtong coldly snorted, glanced at it, and raised her hand to collect everything in the secret room. That punch just now had landed right on the node of the secret room's defense, which was the easiest way to break through the defense. It was just that the price was a little high. Buzz. Almost at the same time Luo Qingtong broke through the door of Tianyu's royal treasury's secret chamber, a shrill alarm sounded. In an instant, everyone in Tianyu's royal palace was alarmed. Treasury. Something happened in the imperial treasury. Someone broke into the palace at night and entered the treasury. Quick! Mobilize the troops and put the entire palace under martial law. Everyone, surround and kill the thief. Orders were issued one after another, and the entire Tianyu's royal palace was in chaos. Chapter 2:15. Little Pig stared dumbfoundedly at the entire Tianyu imperial palace. It was as if a hornet's nest had been poked. In the next second, Little Pig screamed at the top of his lungs. Run! This woman used to blame him for being a troublemaker. She was the one who was the most troublemaker. The entire Tianyu imperial palace was alarmed. Didn't she say, "Sneak into the village, don't shoot me? I'm going to die because of this woman." I don't need you to tell me that. Luo Qingtong dashed out of the treasury the moment she smashed the door open. The guards of the imperial palace were already rushing toward her. Luo Qingtong came face to face with a dense crowd the moment she stepped out of the treasury. Luo Qingtong's mouth twitched as she looked at the moving figures and heads. Seems like I've gone too far this time. But it's good that I'm big. If I'm not big enough, I'm afraid I can't save that man. I'll take the blame, but you can go and die. She was deeply grateful that the imperial palace of Tianyu was willing to sacrifice themselves for others. You woman, I told you you're crazy, but you didn't believe me. How are we going to escape in this situation? Little Pig stretched out his limbs and prepared to lay down on her shoulder like a corpse. We're dead for sure, okay? I must have had 8 lifetimes of bad luck to have such a master. Little Pig wanted to cry in his heart. Useless. Who told you we're dead for sure? Luo Qingtong rolled her eyes at Little Pig. She licked the corner of her lips, and the smile on her lips was wanton and devilish. I'll show you what it means to show off. Aren't they just a bunch of experts from Tianyu's imperial palace? When she was wanted all over the world, the scene was even bigger and there were even more experts than this. Didn't she still manage to escape in the end? Although she said that, Luo Qingtong's expression was very serious. With her current strength, it was still too difficult for her to face Tianyu's imperial palace head-on. Fortunately, her goal was only to escape. In this aspect, no one would dare to claim to be first even if she claimed to be second. As long as she was careful, there shouldn't be a problem. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly burst with bloody light. In an instant, there was a gust of wind under her feet, and she floated up with a light tap. Whoosh! She rushed towards the first few Martial King realm cultivators who had arrived and were attacking her. When the latter saw that she actually dared to rush towards them, they were instantly enraged. Thief, where do you think you're going? With a boom, several people attacked at the same time. That vast and boundless power instantly surged and blasted towards Luo Qingtong. The young man was dressed in red, and his face was hidden under a piece of red cloth that was torn at the last minute. It was faintly discernible, and he looked like a demon. Shwa! Almost no one saw how she moved, they only saw her easily dodging those attacks. Most importantly, her figure had only swayed a few times from the beginning to the end. This oneness of heaven and man? Seeing Luo Qingtong nimbly dodging their attacks, one of the Martial King realm cultivators of the imperial palace instantly cried out in alarm. Unity of heaven and man legend had it that when a martial emperor realm cultivator cultivated to the realm of returning to one's original state, he would be able to completely merge his aura with the heaven and earth. From then on, he would be able to move at will. The young man in front of them was actually able to use such a movement technique? But his strength was clearly not that strong. Chapter 2:16. Swish swish swish. Just as Luo Qingtong said, this was an ultimate show-off. More and more people rushed towards the treasury, but Luo Qingtong remained calm. Countless attacks blasted towards her. Catch her! Luo Qingtong was indescribably calm in the midst of the earth-shattering shouts. Her figure seemed especially graceful and at ease in the midst of these attacks and the crowd of snipers. All the attacks and interceptions were dodged by Luo Qingtong in an instant. Swish swish swish. One attack after another passed by Luo Qingtong's surroundings. Even those who wanted to catch her were easily dodged by Luo Qingtong. She unleashed her eye technique to the maximum. Amidst the densely packed attacks like a fishing net, she cleverly found the point of connection. With just a flash, she continuously dodged those attacks and attempts to capture her. From beginning to end, she didn't slow down at all. Using her eye technique at such a high speed, Luo Qingtong felt a sharp pain in her head. But this kind of pain had its rewards. Luo Qingtong's eyes lit up when she saw that the masters from the royal family of Tianyu who came to capture her were left behind. She leaped onto the city wall. Swish! The youth's figure was like an extremely graceful butterfly. He paused for a moment above the walls of the imperial palace before flying off into the distance. Countless attacks landed behind her, and all of them turned into foils for her. Trash from the imperial family of Tianyu. So what if this young master has ransacked your treasury? Come and catch me if you dare. The moment she landed, Luo Qingtong rolled on the ground. She looked up and smiled at the strong cultivators of the Tianyu royal family on the city wall. She raised her hand and gave them 2 thumbs down. The smile on her face was contemptuous to the extreme. Evil and arrogant. Bastard. Catch her. Catch her at all costs. The people from Tianyu's royal family who had been chasing after her all this time were enraged by this scene. This little thief, not only did she sneak into the treasury, she even dared to taunt them. Even if they didn't know the meaning of that gesture, they could feel the deep contempt and disdain in Luo Qingtong's smile. Rumble. A group of people angrily rushed down from the walls of the inner palace. Oh my God. Let's run. Luo Qingtong looked at the black mass of people who were infuriated by her. She stuck out her tongue and dashed away. Damn man. Hang in there. I'm coming to save you. The imperial family of Tianyu sacrificed themselves for the sake of others. Little Pig was squatting on Luo Qingtong's shoulder, its 4 little hooves clutching her clothes. It was so messy. It just wanted to see how this woman was going to play herself to death. Rumble. The entire imperial city of Tianyu could hear the commotion. Luo Qingtong led a group of people from the imperial family of Tianyu to the spring pavilion. At the same time, Bei Qing was also injured in the fight with the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion. Feng Yu had to protect Yi Qianxian who couldn't move at all. She couldn't find the time to help him. Under the pressure of the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins, the 3 of them were trapped in the middle. Yi Qianxian looked at them coldly as the energy in his body surged rapidly. He was about to find a way to break that woman's shackles. Right at this moment. Rumble. Chapter 217. Rumble. The sound came from afar and soon arrived at the Winter Jasmine Pavilion. Before the people in the courtyard could react, a red figure instantly flipped over the courtyard wall outside and entered the courtyard. Hi. She raised her hand and greeted the 2 parties in the courtyard. Luo Qingtong heaved a long sigh of relief when she saw Yi Qianxian was protected by Bei Qing's wind feather. Although his body was stiff, he wasn't injured. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. I made it in time. This man is still fine. You. Yi Qianxian and Bei Qing's wind feather were shocked when they saw Luo Qingtong. Yi Qianxian, in particular, furrowed his cold brows when he saw her. Get lost. His voice was cold. Almost the moment Luo Qingtong appeared, he shouted mercilessly. He didn't say a word when the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion appeared. However, when he saw Luo Qingtong, he immediately shouted. What is this woman doing here? These assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion are here for me. Other than a Sage Realm expert with 9 blades, there are also several Sage Realm experts with 8 blades who are comparable to a Sage Realm expert. Even Bei Qing and Wind Feather, who were personally trained by him, were no match for them. What is she doing here? Yi Qianxian's brows were raised. The moment he saw Luo Qingtong, the first thought in his mind was to chase her away. He didn't want her to be dragged into this mess. Hey! I say, aren't you a little too heartless? We came here to help you. How can you treat us like this? Little Pig was enraged. It was only after he followed Luo Qingtong here that he understood why this woman was so crazy. She directly poked the hornet's nest that was Tianyu's imperial family. So she came here to save this man. However, this man didn't seem to appreciate it at all. Instantly, Little Pig became displeased. No matter what, this woman was its master, and she had taken such a huge risk for Yi Qianxian. Not only did this man not appreciate her kindness, but he even told them to scram. So what if you're strong? Could he despise others just because of that? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows when she heard Yi Qianxian say, "Get lost." She could feel that the man's voice was not so cold and heartless. Was he trying to get her out of this? He didn't want her to get involved. The bloody light in Luo Qingtong's eyes flickered. At least this man had a conscience. He even knew to ask a weak woman like her to leave. She did not come back to save him in vain. Luo Qingtong's eyes swept across the group of people who were confronting Yi Qianxian's trio, and the corners of her lips twitched. F***CKU. Rows and rows of numbers appeared on the screen. Did this man have to have such a strong enemy? Fortunately, she was prepared. Otherwise, she would have been delivering herself to his enemy. Even if she wanted to unseal this man's acupuncture points, it would still take some time. No need. Scram. Yi Qianxian's voice was cold. Luo Qingtong was not affected at all. Sorry, it seems like I can't scram. There were so many people outside. She rushed out of the imperial family's treasury and purposely went around Tianyu's imperial city to lure a bunch of people here. It was all to make this man's enemy the scapegoat. Now he was telling her to scram? Was he kidding? She couldn't escape even if she had eyes all over her body. Luo Qingtong rolled her eyes at him. Chapter 218. Luo Qingtong was originally riding on top of the courtyard wall. She stood up abruptly, her red robe fluttering in the wind. In the dark night sky, she was as dazzling as a fiery sunset. She raised her hand and snapped her fingers. Under the night sky, her picturesque eyes were extremely dazzling, and her smile was as bright as a flower. Hey! Here's something good for you guys. As she spoke, she raised her hand and threw something to the people from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion. Seeing the thing she threw out, Yi Qianxian, Bei Qing, and Feng Yu felt strange. They didn't know what she was doing. Only Little Pig knew that this woman was going to trick them again. She's going to trick them again. The thing she threw out was none other than the key to Tianyu's imperial family's treasury. Moreover, Luo Qingtong had smeared her aura on the door of the imperial treasury's secret chamber before she left. In other words, the aura of the imperial treasury's secret chamber and the secret chamber's protective measures, which the experts of Tianyu's imperial family relied on to chase after Luo Qingtong, were all on that key. Now, Luo Qingtong threw it to that man's enemy. Naturally, the target of Tianyu's imperial family's hatred became them. Evil. Too evil. Treacherous. Too treacherous. Little Pig didn't know what to say about Luo Qingtong anymore. This woman really had a bellyful of evil tricks and little ideas in her bones. Simply too much. Whoever provoked her would be unlucky. What the hell is this? The Supreme Assassin Pavilion's men were currently closing in on Yi Qianxian's group with murderous intent. They didn't even spare a glance at Luo Qingtong. With their current strength, Luo Qingtong's martial general cultivation wasn't even comparable to an ant. However, no one expected that such an ant would actually throw something at them. The nine-blade assassin at the front chopped the key into pieces. His cold gaze instantly turned to Luo Qingtong. Kill her. This young man was simply courting death. However, just as he finished speaking, the silver key that had been cut in half by him instantly exploded into a cloud of dust in the air with a bang. In an instant, the silver powder sprinkled down like a sky full of stars, accurately covering the group of assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion. Every assassin from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion was stained with a layer of the Silver Key's powder. At the same time, the Silver Key's aura. It's done. A bloody light flashed in Luo Qingtong's eyes. In the next second, she flew up into the air and charged towards the courtyard where Yi Qianren and the others were. Bang! The 9-blade assassin pavilions, Luo of Tianyu's men. Calm. Of. The item. Let's meet at. Don't get caught by Tianyu's imperial family. Luo Qingtong smiled and winked at the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins who were surrounding Yi Qianxian's group. Her face was full of mischief. That kind of mischievous aura mixed with mischievous and quick-witted agility made her look like an elf in the dark night. She was so mischievous and unscrupulous, full of mischief. Everyone's heart couldn't help but skip a beat. This woman was really a demoness. Chapter 219. He wanted to hold this figure in his arms. He wanted to keep this figure that was like the wind, that he couldn't catch. This figure that always slipped through his fingers and stayed by his side. He wanted to hold her tightly and make sure that she couldn't escape. The figure of Luo Qingtong leaping down was reflected in Yi Qianxian's eyes. That blazing light was reflected in his eyes. It was as if a ball of fire had suddenly lit up in a pool of cold, stagnant water. It almost dyed the pool of water that hadn't moved for thousands of years into the color of a blazing flame. It was just like Yi Qianxian's beating heart at this moment. He looked at Luo Qingtong leaping towards him. The fingers hidden under the sleeves of his robe suddenly moved. Bang! The moment Luo Qingtong jumped down, she directly raised her hand and pressed on the ground. Rise! The youth's voice was crisp and clear, and his smile was wanton. After the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's people waved away the layers of silver dust, they looked up and saw such a scene. The youth in red half knelt on the ground and pressed his palm on the ground. Rumble. The array that had been shattered by the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins started to operate again. But this time, the formation had changed. It had turned into another array. In an instant, countless silver lights enveloped Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian. An array was formed in an instant. And it was on a broken array. No one knew how Luo Qingtong did it. The previous array formation had clearly been shattered. She was actually able to restart and form an array again. Obviously, the array she had set up previously was an array within an array. And it was an extremely profound array within an array. This was because there were very few array formations that could reconstruct the array with the remaining nodes after most of the nodes were destroyed. Array Grandmaster. Looking at Luo Qingtong's actions, the leading 9-blade assassin's pupils suddenly shrank and emitted a light of disbelief. This youth who looked to be only 14 or 15 years old was actually an array Grandmaster. How was this possible? Before he could recover from his shock, Luo Qingtong's voice came from outside. The experts of Tianyu's imperial family who had been lured over by her had already rushed in from all directions. Over here. That thief's accomplice is here. Star-broken silver. It's the shards of our imperial treasury's key. Damn it. Capture them. Tear them into pieces. The experts of Tianyu's imperial family who had been tricked by Luo Qingtong all the way from the imperial treasury were now bursting with anger. His bloodshot eyes didn't even pay attention to the strength of the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's experts. He raised his weapon and charged forward. How dare they provoke the imperial family of Tianyu's imperial family? They'll let them know how powerful they were. These thieves were simply too arrogant. Rumble. The royal family of Tianyu raised their hands and attacked the assassins from Supreme Assassin Pavilion. The assassins of the Supreme Assassin Pavilion were Sage Realm and Half-Sage Realm experts. When had they ever been offended like this? Seeing this group of Tianyu's experts attacking them, they instantly released their auras and annihilated the attacks with a boom. Chapter 220. Oh my God. Inside the array, Luo Qingtong was leading Yi Qianxian and the others to escape. When she turned around and saw this scene, the corners of her mouth twitched. These trash from Tianyu's imperial family. They were always so arrogant. Weren't they experts from some imperial country? There were so many martial kings and martial emperors. How could they be sent flying in just a few moves? Aren't you letting down your arrogant faces? How pathetic. What use were you? She even brought a group of people with her, but they probably wouldn't even last a few moves. And there was this man. What kind of enemy did he provoke? What kind of people did you provoke? They're so strong. Luo Qingtong glared angrily at the man who was half supported by Feng Yu Beiqing and asked angrily. They're from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion. Yi Qianxian's voice was indifferent, as if he didn't care. He looked coldly at Luo Qingtong and reached out a hand to her. Come here. He ordered without any hesitation. But Luo Qingtong looked at him with vigilance. Saving people was one thing, but she couldn't get close to this man. Who knew what he would do to her? After all, she had just tricked this man. Although he couldn't move now, he still had 2 attendants by his side. Luo Qingtong wisely kept a good distance from the 3 of them. Yi Qianxian looked at her helplessly. The veins on his forehead were about to burst. You're so far away from me, how are you going to unseal my acupoints? Those people from Tianyu's imperial family won't be able to stop them for long. Yi Qianxian gritted his teeth and said word by word. Did this woman not want to get close to him? Was she that afraid of him? Oh. Luo Qingtong came back to her senses. So this man was talking about unsealing your acupoints. Don't worry, they'll do it for you. I'll do it, you guys do it. She pointed at Beiqing and Feng Yu. Which one of you will do it? I don't want them. Before Beiqing and Feng Yu could finish, Yi Qianxian's cold voice rang out. You're the one who hit my acupoint. You do it. She wanted to push him to someone else. Was this woman so impatient to approach him that she wasn't even willing to touch him? Guarding against him was like guarding against the plague. Before this, he didn't know who was the one who had done all sorts of things to him. Or could it be that this woman was so fickle? Thinking about this, Yi Qianxian felt an inexplicable fire in his heart. Without thinking, he rejected Luo Qingtong's suggestion to unseal his acupoints. Beiqing and Wind Feather, who were beside him, were stunned when they heard this. Master? Was this really their master? When did master become so willful? The more they looked at Yi Qianxian, the stranger their expressions became. She didn't know why, but although it was very strange, she felt that her master was like a child who didn't get to eat candy and was sulking. As soon as this thought popped up in their minds, they instantly quivered. An illusion. It was definitely an illusion. How could master be like this? However, their thoughts couldn't help but drift in this direction. On the other hand, Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianxian in confusion. What was wrong with this man? Wasn't he happy to unseal his acupoints? Why did he have to force her to do it? There was a conspiracy. As Luo Qingtong thought about it, she instantly became vigilant. In fact, it wasn't that Luo Qingtong didn't want to help Yi Qianxian. It was just that with her current strength, it would take too much time to unseal his acupoints. It was better to let Beiqing and Feng Yu do it. They're faster. Luo Qingtong looked depressed. Can you stop thinking about how to catch me at this time? Deal with the enemy first. Chapter 221. Chase. The 9-blade assassin waved his weapon and ordered coldly. I'll block these people from Tianyu's royal family. You guys go after the target. His voice was filled with anger. He didn't expect to be tricked by that ant-like young man. It didn't feel good to be slapped in the face by someone he didn't care about. However, what was even more unbearable for him was that his target, which was so hard to obtain, had actually escaped. The other party's head was worth tens of thousands of gold taels. The reward was so generous that even a sage like him couldn't help but be tempted. If it wasn't for the fact that the other party's strength was declining, they wouldn't have dared to take the risk. There were many people in the Supreme Assassin Pavilion waiting to snatch his head. Now that he had found such a rare opportunity, he couldn't let it go. Yes. The 7 or 8 blade assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion answered and retreated with their weapons. Shwa shwa shwa. Their figures were like blood as they chased after Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian. Oh no. Those people are catching up. You guys move faster. Luo Qingtong had left a series of detection devices along the way. When she felt those devices being activated, she was shocked. Master? Bei Qing looked at Yi Qianxian with a questioning look. Release it. Yi Qianxian's face was dark as he squeezed the words out from between his teeth. This woman was simply infuriating. Did she think that she could escape like this? When he recovered his strength, he wouldn't give her any chance to escape. Luo Qingtong was also thinking about how to escape. This man had been tricked by her. He must be thinking about how to catch her to vent his anger. If she was caught by him, she would be dead meat. Luo Qingtong thought about the things she had done to Yi Qianxian and felt guilty. She then looked at Yi Qianren's cold gaze that had been staring at her from start to finish. She felt a wave of bitterness in her heart. She was here to save him. Could this man not look at her like she was his prey? Even if she had done something wrong to him. Fine. She had done many things wrong to him, but wasn't she here to make up for it? How could a hell venerable be so petty? How could he face those people who admired and worshipped him like this? Be more magnanimous. Luo Qingtong felt depressed. But no matter how depressed she was, she didn't want to leave now. Although this was the best time for her to escape, this man was busy unlocking his acupoints. There were people chasing after him. He didn't have time to take care of her. But what if she left and this man didn't have time to unseal his acupoints and fell into danger again? Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong couldn't move. Sigh. Forget it. She's sending Buddha to the west. After all, this man's us. She would find a way to escape. There should be a way. Luo Qingtong's mouth twitched at the thought of this man's terrifying strength. No. Just as she was thinking this, swoosh swoosh swoosh. Up ahead, in front of the alley where the 4 of them were hiding, blood-red figures that looked like phantoms suddenly appeared. Damn it. These people came so fast. Looking at the majestic figures, Luo Qingtong felt that something was wrong. She had estimated the time based on martial emperors. These people had arrived much earlier than she had imagined. What kind of strength did they have? Kill. Those Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins waved the weapons in their hands and rushed over without any nonsense. Chapter 222. Master. Bei Qing and Feng Yu also noticed the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion. Seeing the assassins rushing towards them, the 2 of them stopped at the same time. Miss Tong, I beg you to take our master away. We'll be grateful to you with our lives. Feng Yu took a deep breath and stepped forward with Bei Qing. They didn't know Luo Qingtong's name, but since she called herself the evil Dr. Ghost Eye and also called herself Evil Eye, it was probably right to call her Miss Tong. They looked at Luo Qingtong's empty eyes, which had a faint bloody light flashing in them, and finally realized that what their master had said was true. There really was such a magical woman in the world. She was blind but could see things. She was not strong but could do things that many strong people could do. She was also proficient in array formations and refining medicine. However, the assassins who came to kill them were at the half-step Saint realm. They couldn't pin their hopes on Luo Qingtong anymore. She was able to escape with them before because these assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion looked down on her. Now that they were vigilant, it was impossible for them to succeed again. The only thing they could do was to stop the assassins and let Luo Qingtong take Yi Qianxian away quickly. Although the evil doctor's strength was average, she was good at medicine, poison, array formations and refining weapons. Her abilities were even more strange. To be able to escape from the master's hands time and time again, she definitely relied on more than just luck. Bei Qing and Feng Yu believed that she would be able to take their master away safely while they stopped these assassins. You want me to take him away? Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianxian, who had a cold expression on his face, and her lips twitched uncontrollably. Was this a joke? This man had deliberately planned to catch her. If she took him away, wouldn't she be sending a little white rabbit to the wolf's claws? When this man regained his strength, would she be able to live a good life? What's more, although Luo Qingtong didn't know how strong these assassins were, she could see that Bei Qing and Feng Yu were only slightly stronger than them. Under such a siege, if the two of them stayed behind to cover the retreat, there would only be one outcome, and that was certain death. No, let's go together. Take good care of your master. Luo Qingtong decisively rejected Wind Feather's proposal. They should take care of their own masters themselves. Luo Qingtong had stopped Yi Qianxian to protect herself. She didn't want to kill him or his two subordinates. This kind of enmity was something that could not be done. But this man's strength couldn't be restored in a short period of time. What could she do? Luo Qingtong finally experienced the feeling of shooting herself in the foot. She should have known that this man would meet his enemy at this time. How could she hit his acupoints for so long? At the very least, there should be a backdoor that could be quickly removed. However, she was worried that this man's strength was too strong, so she really didn't leave any way out. Now his balls hurt. TSK. You guys block them first. Let me unseal your master's acupoints. There was no other way. This was the only way. As for what this man would do to her after his powers were removed, she could only resign herself to fate. Looking at his appearance, it didn't seem like he wanted to kill her. What's more, she couldn't tell him the condition of his meridians to save his life, right? But in reality, Luo Qingtong didn't like the feeling of not being in control of her own fate. Instead, it was in the hands of others. But now, in order to save this man, there was no other way. Swish. She flew to Yi Qianxian's side and quickly began to unseal his acupoints. Chapter 223. Bang! The two of them blocked a ray of cold light that was aimed at Yi Qianxian. Seeing that the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion had already closed in on them, they could only fight first. They could only hope that the demonic doctor could quickly remove the sealed power in their master's body. Otherwise, they would all die here. Rumble. Bei Qing and Feng Yu tried their best to block the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion. Luo Qingtong also frowned and used all the strength in her body to unseal Yi Qianxian's acupoints. When she said that Feng Yu and Bei Qing were faster at unsealing his acupoints, she wasn't lying to Yi Qianxian. Those two were really faster at unsealing his acupoints than her. Who asked her to be so weak now? And she had sealed his acupoints too tightly. She was afraid that he would break through. Great, now she had dug her own grave. Humph, didn't you say that I'm too strong and you can't unseal my acupoints? Yi Qianxian snorted. This woman's words couldn't be trusted. She clearly didn't want to get close to him. Luo Qingtong paused and almost told this man to stop fooling around. Was it really good to be so calculative with her at this time? Was it really good for him that she couldn't unseal his acupoints? Did he have to be so vengeful? Luo Qingtong rolled her eyes at the sky and decided to ignore his words. Yi Qianxian didn't get a response and was angry. Just as he was about to say something, he suddenly felt a chill on his body. Rip. The thick embroidered ice robe on his body was instantly torn in half along with his inner clothes. The words that Yi Qianren was about to say were stuck in her throat. Soon after, it turned into an angry and embarrassed question. Woman, what are you doing? Even if she coveted him, she shouldn't have torn his clothes at this time. Does this woman even have the slightest bit of modesty as a woman? Yi Qianxian's heart was filled with anger and shame. On the other side, Bei Qing and Fengyu, who were fighting against the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion, heard the sound of the robe being torn and subconsciously looked back. They were so shocked that they almost fell down. Oh my God! What was the evil doctor doing? Wasn't she a girl? Why did she tear her master's clothes? Wasn't it inappropriate to molest his master at this time? Evil doctor. Although your temperament is unrestrained and you don't care much about the boundaries between men and women, at this time, isn't it more important to get down to business? The two of them looked at each other and inexplicably felt that it was a little unreliable for them to entrust their master to the evil doctor, but soon, they were relieved by Luo Qingtong's next move. What's your name? It's hard to transmit power through clothes. Luo Qingtong said unhappily. Since he had to unseal the acupoints as soon as possible, the faster the transmission of power, the better. The more accurate the better. How could he do it without taking off his clothes? How much time would that waste? Yi Qianxian was rendered speechless by her. This woman was full of excuses. She always had an excuse. Then shouldn't I thank you for not stripping my clothes and sealing my acupoints when we were in the bathtub? Yi Qianxian gritted his teeth. Cough, let bygones be bygones. Luo Qingtong coughed awkwardly and changed the topic. She really wanted to tear his clothes. But did he give her the chance? Otherwise, how could she have restrained him for 2 hours? Luo Qingtong muttered in her heart as her tender fingers tapped the man's back. Chapter 224. The muscles on his back subconsciously tightened. Perhaps it was because the girl was behind him and couldn't see, but Yi Qianxian's 5 senses became even more acute. His senses couldn't help but follow the girl's movements. He only felt that her fingertips were round and smooth, and her skin was delicate and smooth. It was as if she had no bones. Every touch was like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. But even so, Yi Qianren felt as if a ball of fire had been ignited at the spot on her back that was touched. Clearly, this woman's strength wasn't worth mentioning to him. But every time she touched him, he felt as if he was being burned for some reason. What did this woman do to him? Why did she make him feel this way? One had to know that even a Sage Realm expert wouldn't be able to hurt him and make him feel this way. This woman had only touched him lightly. How could he feel this way? Yi Qianxian's heart was tormented. He wanted to grab Luo Qingtong's hands that were roaming all over his body, but he couldn't move. Luo Qingtong was also filled with depression. More than half of Yi Qianxian's acupuncture points had been unsealed. But even with the small remaining ones, it was still extremely difficult for her to unseal them. The main problem was that this man's body was too hard. Luo Qingtong indignantly poked Yi Qianxian's acupuncture points on his back. She felt that the energy she was transferring was intermittent. She still had to transfer energy a few more times. Did this man have to be so strong? Apart from his meridians, the values of the other parts of his body were all at an inhuman level. This was the first time Luo Qingtong had been so anxious while unsealing his acupuncture points. Especially in order to lock down Yi Qianren's strength, she had used the most difficult pressure point technique. It was easy to seal his acupuncture points, but when unsealing them, the order and strength required were a lot of things. But when Luo Qingtong unsealed his acupuncture points, she discovered that this technique had been loosened by the impact. It made it easier for her to unseal his acupuncture points, and her speed was also a little faster. This man must have done it. Luo Qingtong gained a new understanding of Yi Qianxian's strength. She had specially modified this pressure point sealing technique according to the condition of his meridians. In addition, his strength had weakened to such an extent, yet he was still able to use this pressure point sealing technique? What a freak! Luo Qingtong thought as she unsealed Yi Qianxian's acupoints. As her finger moved downwards, when it was close to the tailbone, Yi Qianren finally couldn't take it any longer. You! Just as he finished speaking, there was a loud bang. On the opposite side, Bei Qing, who was already injured, found an opening and was forced to retreat with a slash. In the next second, the assassins from Supreme Assassin Pavilion who had seized the opportunity charged over with their weapons in hand. No. It's too late. Luo Qingtong's heart trembled slightly. She clenched her teeth when she saw the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion charging at her. Her eyes glowed with a bloody light as she raised her hand and flung Little Pig away. Stop them first. Hey, hey, hey. It can't be like this every time. I really can't do it this time. These people are at least half sages. I can't stop them. Little Pig cried miserably as it was thrown away. It can't be like this. Why is it always the one being abandoned? I can stop them. Hold on. Luo Qingtong said in a low voice. 5 breaths. If she had 5 more breaths, she would be able to unseal this man's acupuncture points. Boom. Chapter 225. Bam. 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 Under the shocked gazes of Little Pig and Bei Qing Fengyu, the bodies of the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins exploded one after another. It was as if they were attacked by something. Their bodies were riddled with countless wounds. But in reality, no one had touched them. They weren't attacked at all. However, the explosions came one after another. Flowers of blood bloomed on the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins. In an instant, the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins' auras weakened by a lot. They were obviously injured. Was this woman the one who did this? Even Yi Qianren's eyes flashed fiercely when she saw this. Not to mention Bei Qing and Little Pig. Wow! How did this woman do it? How could she injure the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins with her martial general strength? Little Pig's eyes were filled with shock. He even forgot that he was thrown out as a shield. Wait! It's those silver shavings. They're the silver shavings from the broken key. Little Pig suddenly squealed. He finally realized what was going on. At that time, the silver shavings exploded and scattered on the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins. He thought that Luo Qingtong did it on purpose so that the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins would take the blame. Now that he thought about it, could it be that things weren't as simple as that? This woman had already done something to the silver shavings. Taking the blame was only one of the reasons. The most important thing was the hidden power in the silver shavings. Wow! This woman hid it too well. No one paid any attention to the silver shavings. Who would have thought that there was hidden power in them? Now that the silver shavings exploded, the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's half-step Sage Realm assassins were heavily injured. This woman's scheme was simply amazing. Stop talking nonsense. Stop them. Luo Qingtong's brows were tightly knitted. Her hands didn't stop moving. The silver shavings could injure the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins, but they couldn't make them lose their ability to move. If they couldn't stop them, they would still die. Luo Qingtong was also going all out. She had originally planned to use this trump card after saving this man to prevent these people from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion from chasing after her. However, these people were much stronger than she had imagined. They had caught up so quickly. Luo Qingtong had no choice but to use it in advance. She could only hope that she would be able to hold off the Supreme Assassin Pavilion for a while longer to buy some time for her. Bang bang bang. Little Pig rushed toward the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion. With the help of Bei Qing, he tried his best to stall them. However, the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion seemed to have realized something. They looked at the half-naked Yi Qianxian standing next to Luo Qingtong with murderous intent in their eyes. Bang! One of the half-saint experts facing Wind Feather suddenly retracted his saber and blocked Wind Feather's weapon with his own body. Kill the target, he said in a deep and hoarse voice. In the next second, the half-saint experts behind him quickly broke through Wind Feather's line of defense and rushed toward Yi Qianxian and Luo Qingtong. This time, Luo Qingtong didn't have any means to stop them. Moreover, Yi Qianxian's acupoints hadn't been unsealed yet. "Woman, run." Yi Qianxian's voice was cold. Chapter 226. Luo Qingtong didn't say anything. The blood-red light in her eyes kept flashing as she activated her pupil technique to the extreme. She was calculating how to bring Yi Qianxian out of the encirclement. But it wouldn't work. These people were too strong and there were too many of them. If it was just Luo Qingtong alone, she could barely break out of the encirclement. But if she brought Yi Qianxian along, it would be impossible. What's more, this man was their target. Even if she rushed out with him, these people would rush up again. At that time, they still wouldn't be able to escape. Luo Qingtong glanced at the injured Beiqing and Fengyu. Her eyebrows tightly knitted together. Did she really have to leave this man behind? But why? When this thought flashed through her mind, she suddenly felt a little guilty. Luo Qingtong had experienced too many schemes and betrayals in her previous life. In the end, she developed a self-centered personality. As long as she was well, the whole world could die. She had experienced countless life and death struggles. In order to live, she could do anything, by hook or by crook, for freedom. If this man wanted to catch her, she could have ignored his life and death. But this man didn't really hurt her. In the end, he even went easy on her several times. With Luo Qingtong's personality, she naturally knew that if Yi Qianxian really wanted her to die, he had countless opportunities to do so. If he really wanted to hurt or kill her, he wouldn't have been trapped here by her. Now, he was telling her to leave. Luo Qingtong felt that her heart, which had been as firm as a rock for thousands of years, was suddenly touched. "You don't blame me?" She looked at the man's cold and handsome face in front of her with a conflicted expression. Suddenly, there was an indescribable irritation in her heart. "I trapped you. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been unable to fight back against these people's attacks." With this man's strength, it was impossible for him to not be able to deal with these people. Looking at the scene of these people attacking with their lives, it was obvious that they were also afraid of him recovering his strength. This venerable one accidentally fell into your trap. It was this venerable one's mistake. Why should I blame you? Yi Qianxian frowned. He didn't know why Luo Qingtong asked such a question. What was there to ask? He had been immobilized completely because of his own carelessness. Blame her? He didn't have the habit of shirking responsibility. If he hadn't given this woman a chance, she wouldn't have been able to succeed. However, did this woman's question prove that she actually cared about his opinion and was afraid that he would blame her? At the same time, she was worried about him. Yi Qianxian felt an inexplicable sense of comfort as he thought about it. Don't worry. I won't die so easily. In this world, there are as many people as ants who want to take my life, but none of them have ever succeeded. This time will be no exception. Let's go. As he spoke, he looked coldly at Luo Qingtong, indicating for her to leave quickly. Although this woman was a little clever, she also had some tricks up her sleeves. She had tricked him several times. But that wasn't true strength after all. In front of these half-saint realm assassins, it was simply nothing. These people's target was him. If she left now, she would still be able to escape. Luo Qingtong had been carefully watching Yi Qianxian's expression the entire time. After discovering that he wasn't lying at all, she felt even more conflicted. Her conscience hurt even more, didn't it? This man still didn't blame her at this time. How could she just leave like that? Even if she tricked people, she still had her principles, okay? If something really happened to this man because of this, she wouldn't be able to rest easy for the rest of her life. Chapter 227. Yi Qianxian was stunned by Luo Qingtong's words. He didn't quite understand what Luo Qingtong meant. Why did this woman want him to close his eyes at this time? Why were there so many strange thoughts in her mind? Stop fooling around and leave. He frowned and said in a low voice. He couldn't let her do as she wished at this time. If he closed his eyes, he wouldn't be able to resist those half-saint assassins. Aya. You're such a troublesome man. Luo Qingtong had been conflicted for a long time before she made up her mind. What she was going to do next might expose some of the secrets of her ocular technique. It might even make this man hate her and reveal a trump card that could be used against this man in the future. But now, she couldn't care less. Since this man was in danger because of her, then she would return the favor to him. She would treat it as a gift to him for being merciful to her. From now on, they didn't owe each other anything. Swoosh. Luo Qingtong stomped her feet and pounced on Yi Qianxian. The latter was preparing to forcefully open the remaining acupoints. When Luo Qingtong unsealed his acupoints just now, he had already discovered something. Although forcefully opening his acupoints like this would cause great damage to his already weakened strength, it was more than enough to deal with these half-saint assassins. One had to know that even when his meridians were severely injured, he could still defeat the adult divine sky-connecting beast. To Yi Qianxian, anyone below the saint realm was just an ant. However, Luo Qingtong's pounce interrupted his forceful opening of his acupoints. Not only that, Yi Qianxian's eyes widened in an instant. Luo Qingtong wrapped her arms around his neck and suddenly kissed him on the lips. This kiss was not like the one in the bathtub, which was only for seduction. It was extremely close and deep. The young girl's fragrant tongue entered his mouth and entangled with his. Close your eyes. Meeting the man's deep, cold, and shocked eyes, Luo Qingtong felt ashamed and angry. She wasn't used to this kind of kiss that didn't have any ulterior motives. Especially this time, it was to help this man, which made her feel even more awkward. She had never been so selfless before. The 2 times she had kissed a man before, if it wasn't an accident, it was to escape. It was completely different, all right? When Yi Qianxian heard her words, he narrowed his eyes slightly. Not only did he not close them, he even opened his sharp eagle eyes and stared at her unblinkingly. That gaze was filled with aggression. Luo Qingtong felt uncomfortable under his gaze. She cursed under her breath and closed her eyes. If he doesn't want to shut up, I'll shut up myself. Streams of energy flowed from Luo Qingtong's mouth into Yi Qianxian's body and quickly circulated along his main meridians. This was the same circulation route that Luo Qingtong had used to check on Yi Qianxian's meridians. Because their lips were connected this time, Luo Qingtong didn't hold back any of the energy that she had transferred into Yi Qianxian's body. Therefore, after a few cycles, a large amount of energy from the man's body was transferred into her body. It was impossible for Yi Qianxian not to feel such a turbulent surge of energy. He looked at the young man in front of him who had his eyes tightly closed. His gorgeous and bewitching beauty was like a spirit that could suck people's souls. The light in his eyes flashed fiercely. In the next second, he stirred up the energy in his body and coordinated it with Luo Qingtong's energy. Yi Qianxian didn't know why Luo Qingtong was able to absorb his energy for her own use. Chapter 228. Swish swish swish. With Yi Qianxian's cooperation, Luo Qingtong's aura skyrocketed at a terrifying speed in an instant. Originally, she was able to absorb Yi Qianxian's energy for her own use. However, because she wanted to check on his injuries, she didn't do it deliberately. This time, she completely let go. Because of Yi Qianxian's cooperation, the absorption process was extremely smooth. In just an instant, Luo Qingtong's strength rose to a terrifying level. Compared to those half-saint experts, there wasn't much difference. However, the temporary increase in strength caused Luo Qingtong to feel the pain that almost made her body explode. And because she had absorbed too much of the man's power this time, Luo Qingtong felt like she was going to explode like a balloon at any moment. Boom! At this moment, those half-step Saint Realm experts also charged forward. Resisting the pain in her body, Luo Qingtong pulled Yi Qianxian to the side to dodge. She quickly used her eye technique to find the best place for the man to dodge. Then, she raised her hand and blasted out an attack, blocking the attack of the first half-saint expert that rushed over. Boom boom boom. Luo Qingtong pulled Yi Qianxian and dodged the attacks of those half-saint experts while fighting back. At the same time, she hurriedly said, "Quick, teach me your strongest move." The energy in her body had to be released. Otherwise, her body would explode and she wouldn't be joking. This man was simply abnormal. Luo Qingtong didn't expect that he would still have such powerful strength after being crippled by more than half of his strength. If she didn't release this energy now, she would have to suffer the consequences of her own actions. This sovereign is different from ordinary people. Until now, I've only cultivated the heaven battling art. Yi Qianxian's eyes flickered rapidly. He didn't mention that only he could cultivate the heaven battling art. Moreover, its power was heaven-defying. It could easily destroy the world. Even with his aptitude, it took him a lot of time to master it. This woman, before he could finish speaking, Luo Qingtong grabbed his hand. "It's fine as long as you have it. Quickly teach me. Just one move is enough." Luo Qingtong's meridians were in excruciating pain. If this continued, she would follow in this man's footsteps. All her meridians would burst or something. "All right." Yi Qianxian's voice was steady. He didn't care that in the cultivation world, cultivation techniques couldn't be divulged to outsiders. This was because techniques represented a cultivator's biggest lifeline and trump card. If others understood your techniques, it meant they had a grasp of your lifeline. If someone wanted to target you, according to your cultivation method, they would be able to think of a way to deal with you. Therefore, cultivation techniques was a cultivator's biggest taboo. Yi Qianren didn't care at all. This woman had given him too many surprises. He wanted to see how far she could go. This was the only woman he had met that he couldn't see through no matter how he looked at her. In this world, there was finally someone who could share the title of evildoer with him. Yi Qianxian looked deeply at Luo Qingtong and told her the heaven battling art's incantation. Heaven battling art, heaven and earth become one, limitless earth splitting. Following Yi Qianxian's narration, the bloody light in Luo Qingtong's eyes flickered fiercely. Eye technique activated. Extreme evolution, perfect replication. Yi Qianxian's narration was equivalent to describing a scene of him using the heaven battling art in front of Luo Qingtong. Chapter 229. Bang! Luo Qingtong suddenly took a step forward amidst the attacks of those people. The life and death sword appeared in her hand. Even in this heart-wrenching situation, Luo Qingtong still remembered Tian Mingzi's instructions. She couldn't let anyone see the true form of the life and death sword. She didn't activate the death blade state. She swung the life and death sword in its original form. The black and white light of the sword flashed, setting off the young man's red clothes. It was like a rich painting of flowers and birds colliding with a light painting of mountains and rivers. It gave people a visual shock to the extreme. The beautiful young man in red clothes collided with the simple black and white light in his hand. It was as if he had stepped out of hell and was holding the goddess of purgatory who could take people's lives. When the sword swung down, heaven and earth shook and everything fell silent. The wind and clouds surged, and no stars or moonlight could be seen. Only the vast earth, the surging wind, and the boundless murderous aura. The first move of the heaven-conquering art, seizing heaven's fortune. Swoosh! Luo Qingtong raised her arms and held the life and death sword horizontally in front of her. In the next second, the sword light was piercingly cold. With this as the starting point, it suddenly swept out horizontally. In an instant, a ray of light seemed to appear between heaven and earth. In the dark night sky, it was as if a straight line had been cut open. In that dense dark sky, a ray of light that was enough to split the heavens was drawn. It illuminated this moment of midnight. Like the dawn of the sky, no one could stop it. no one could stop it. Boom! That sword light shot out in a straight line. In an instant, the half-saint assassins who had rushed to Luo Qingtong were quickly turned into ashes. Ah! Screams rang out one after another. Those Supreme Assassin Pavilion assassins who swore to kill Yi Qianxian never expected that they would die in the hands of an unknown young man. And this young man was clearly only at the martial general realm. A young man who was like an ant in their eyes and could be easily killed had his strength skyrocketed in an instant. With just a single strike, he had completely annihilated all of them. Even if they were to repeat it 100 times, these Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins would never have imagined such an outcome. Boom! After the sword light killed all the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion, it didn't slow down in the slightest. Instead, it continued on its way. Bei Qing, Wind Feather, and Little Pig were dumbfounded. They almost forgot to dodge when they saw the sword light flying toward them. Oh my God! The evil doctor, this woman, is too powerful. How did she do it? The two people and the pig were dumbfounded. If they hadn't reacted at the last second and dodged, they would have been killed by this sword. The sword light exploded in midair, creating a huge vortex in the sky. Their expressions were indescribably sluggish. Bei Qing and Feng Yu, in particular, were so shocked that they were speechless. This was Master's famous skill. It's a move that only Master can use. How did the evil doctor use it? And how did she become so powerful? She killed all the half-saint realm experts with one strike. Oh my God! Her strength is enough to crush them. How did she do it? Yi Qianxian's emotions fluctuated violently when he saw Luo Qingtong use the killer move that only he could use. This woman was destined to be his. Crack! Yi Qianxian's acupuncture points were opened at this moment. Chapter 230. Phew. Let me lean on it for a bit. Luo Qingtong didn't expect that the move Yi Qianxian taught her would be so powerful. She was shocked when she saw the group of semi-sage realm assassins in front of her turn into ashes under her sword. Especially when the sword light had destroyed so many sage-to-be powerhouses, but it did not diminish. Instead, it exploded into a huge whirlpool in the air. The corners of her lips twitched violently. Luo Qingtong felt that even if she used the perfect copy ability of her ocular technique, it seemed that she couldn't perfectly copy the complete strength of the other party's heaven-conquering art. Because the strength in her body wasn't enough. It could be seen how powerful this man was. It was a move that could kill so many half-step saint assassins with one move. And it was still incomplete power. Then how strong was the complete power? Thinking that she had provoked such a man, Luo Qingtong really couldn't feel happy at all. The more she came into contact with this man, the more terrifying she felt. Did she use up all the good luck from her previous life in this rebirth? Why did she encounter such a peerless monster as soon as she transmigrated? As the supreme ocular technique master of the 24th century, Luo Qingtong had never been so helpless against anyone. But she was helpless against this man who kept chasing after her and wanted to catch her. Thinking about it really made her balls hurt, didn't it? Luo Qingtong's lips twitched as she thought about it. She used up all her strength and leaned her weak and sore body on the man's body. AI. You're such a man. If only you were a little weaker. She raised her hand and poked the man's strong arm muscles. She didn't know that the man under her had already opened his acupoints and recovered his strength. He could hold her like a chicken with one hand. At this moment, Yi Qianren was accumulating his strength, preparing to take down this woman who always surprised him, but also made him gnash his teeth in anger every time. However, when Luo Qingtong leaned on him, his whole body trembled fiercely, and the brewing strength in his body was interrupted. The girl's body was as soft as cotton. Because she didn't know that Yi Qianxian had already unsealed her acupoints, Luo Qingtong didn't put her guard up against him at all. She unceremoniously placed all her weight on him. She was so tired because she wanted to save him. He even exposed a part of his trump card. What was wrong with letting her lean on him? She hadn't even complained about how hard this man's muscles were. Did he dare to complain that she was too heavy? With this thought in mind, Luo Qingtong instantly felt at ease and treated Yi Qianxian as a large bolster, relying on him to recover her strength. Yi Qianxian's heart felt very strange. He could feel Luo Qingtong's entire body relax as she leaned on him. She was like a lazy cat, lazily, arrogant, and delicate as she hung her entire body weight on him. This was the first time this woman had approached him so unguarded, revealing a side that she would never reveal in front of him before. Yi Qianxian remembered that when he asked her to come closer, this woman instantly jumped 3 feet away with a look of vigilance. If it wasn't for her uneasy conscience, she would have run away at that time. This wild and untamed woman rarely had such a gentle and docile side. Thinking about it, Yi Qianxian's brows slightly relaxed. Forget it, I'll let her lean on me for a while. I'll catch her later. Chapter 231. Yi Qianxian furrowed his brows when he saw the slight fatigue in Luo Qingtong's eyes. He unconsciously relaxed the muscles on his body that had suddenly tensed up when this woman suddenly leaned over, allowing her to lean on him more comfortably. Let's just treat it as a reward for this woman being so obedient. As he thought this, he absent-mindedly followed her words and asked, "Is that so?" Why? This woman's way of thinking was really strange. She actually hoped that he would be a bit weaker. In this world where the strong were revered and the weak were treated as lowly as ants, who wouldn't hope that they or the people around them would be a bit stronger? Only then could they be protected. The men and women around Yi Qianxian who were tirelessly trying to climb into his bed were almost all here for his strength. If he didn't have this strength, who knew how many of those who kept saying that they admired him would still be alive? Yi Qianxian sneered as he thought this. He was actually a bit curious about Luo Qingtong's answer. He wanted to know why this woman would have such a strange idea. Because this way, I can keep you by my side, Luo Qingtong said without hesitation. If this man was weaker than her, he didn't need to be that much weaker. As long as he was just a little bit weaker, she would be able to keep him by her side in a matter of minutes. This voice was really indescribably pleasant to the ears. It was cold and noble, elegant and dignified. It was low and deep like the sound of a bell or drum, but clear and pleasant like the sound of a string instrument. Just listening to it was enough to make one pregnant. Unfortunately, this man's strength was too strong. The danger level was off the charts. It was impossible to control. Thus, Luo Qingtong's idea was just a thought. It was better for her to stay away from such a dangerous man. Especially when he was scheming all sorts of ways to catch her. For the sake of her own life and freedom, staying far away from him was the best plan. Luo Qingtong didn't want to become someone's prey that was imprisoned in the palm of his hand. She couldn't beat this man in a fight and had a bunch of grudges with him. Just thinking about it made her heart tired. Sigh. You want to stay by my side? Automatically interpreting Luo Qingtong's words as if she wanted to stay by his side, Yi Qianxian turned his head to look at the little woman leaning on him. His heart was beating slightly, and he felt inexplicably happy. It turned out that this woman was not lying when she said that she admired him. She really liked him. He was just too embarrassed to admit it before, right? Yi Qianxian thought of the women who tried to get close to him. Many of them pretended to be indifferent to attract his attention. However, the pretentious attitude of those people only made him feel disgusted. This woman's hypocrisy made him feel very comfortable. Yes. Luo Qingtong didn't notice that the order of his words was reversed. She said regretfully, "Unfortunately, you're too strong." Sigh. At this point, she sighed heavily. As Yi Qianxian listened, the corners of his lips curled up. From what he heard, Luo Qingtong's words, this woman wanted to stay by his side, but didn't dare to because he was too strong. No wonder she felt that it would be better if he was a little weaker. As Yi Qianxian thought about it, he felt very happy in his heart. This sovereign's strength is irreversible. However, if you want to stay by this sovereign's side, this sovereign. Before he could finish speaking, on the other side, Luo Qingtong had rested for a while. She felt that the pain in her meridians had lessened by a lot. Her exhausted strength had also returned. She immediately stretched and stood up. Lord, thank you for being my body pillow. Chapter 232. Luo Qingtong's hand that was waving suddenly paused. Seeing the man's face darken in an instant, she had a bad feeling in her heart. Oh my God! When did this man unseal his acupoints? There are clearly 2 more acupoints that haven't been unsealed. If it weren't for this, Luo Qingtong wouldn't be so relaxed as she leaned on this man and chatted with him. Now that she suddenly realized that Yi Qianxian's acupoints had been unsealed, she instantly took a deep breath and turned around to run. Where do you think you're going in front of this sovereign? Seeing Luo Qingtong's overconfident attempt to escape, Yi Qianxian coldly snorted. The joy he felt from Luo Qingtong's implicit confession was completely gone. This woman, he didn't even care that she was weak. Why was she still running? Was he so scary that she had to avoid him like he was a snake or scorpion? But his own strength wasn't something he could control. Yi Qianxian's heart was filled with anger, but he forgot that he didn't have such thoughts when he first caught Luo Qingtong. The latter wasn't stupid, of course she would run. Otherwise, what good would come out of it if she was caught? But his attitude towards Luo Qingtong had changed. He knew, but Luo Qingtong didn't. If she didn't run, would she be waiting for death? Hey. You're such an unreasonable man, aren't you? In any case, I just saved you. How can you turn hostile and not recognize me? If you want to turn hostile, you have to wait until I'm gone. Bang! Luo Qingtong turned around and bumped into a wall of air. Not only that, but she was also surrounded by walls of air in all directions. Seeing the man's surging aura and the walls of air that blocked all her escape routes, Luo Qingtong wanted to cry but had no tears. Good intentions don't have good karma. Donghua and the wolf. The farmer and the snake. This damned man, if I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have saved him. I would have just let him perish under the pursuit of those assassins from Supreme Assassin Pavilion. No one repaid kindness with enmity like him. Seeing the man's gloomy face approaching her step by step, Luo Qingtong was forced to lean against the wall of air behind her. Yi Qianxian was determined not to let her escape this time. The walls of air around Luo Qingtong was so dense that she couldn't even find an opening for insects to fly out, let alone a living person like her. Not to mention that she had an eye technique, even if she had a divine artifact, it would still be useless. She couldn't run even if she dug a hole. That man had laid out a thick layer of energy on the ground, okay. He's preventing her from escaping from underground. She's not AST. Luo Qingtong felt like vomiting blood. But she didn't know that she had all kinds of strange ways to escape. Yi Qianren was also taking precautions against her. This time, he finally managed to stop this woman. He would never let her go again. After suffering a few losses, Yi Qianren had learned her lesson. It didn't matter if it was useful or not, all he had to do was seal them all. He'll tie this woman up later and personally carry her back. Let's see if she can still escape. Wait. Lord, let's talk things out. Seeing the man's 9 meters tall oppressively approaching, almost filling up the small space she was in, Luo Qingtong's heart was in her throat. Although I've tricked you a few times, I've still helped you. You can't be so unjust. You should at least let me go. Next time, catch me openly. What's the point of taking advantage of someone's perilous state? I thought you didn't know how to write the words taking advantage of someone's perilous state. Yi Qianxian snorted coldly. This woman still had the nerve to mention this to him? Which time didn't she take advantage of him? Luo Qingtong was instantly speechless. Chapter 233. Bang! While Yi Qianxian's expression changed, Luo Qingtong also subconsciously looked in the direction he was looking at. However, before she could raise her head, the man pulled her to his side with a swoosh. At the same time, he opened his hand, and a blood-colored full moon instantly rushed forward. Boom! Luo Qingtong staggered. She could feel that not far behind her, there was a fierce collision of attacks coming in all directions. Luo Qingtong's body was still a little unstable. She almost fell to the ground when the attack hit her from behind. At the side, a strong arm suddenly stretched out from the side and hugged her waist, pulling her to his side. The man's breath was boiling hot. His naked upper body was so close to Luo Qingtong's back. Sage Realm, Yi Qianming narrowed his eyes as he looked at the nine-blade assassin who was flying towards him. His handsome face, which was like a celestial being, had an extremely cold expression. This person came at the perfect time. He even dared to attack this woman. If it weren't for Yi Qianxian's quick reaction, that attack would have broken through the air wall he had set up and exploded on Luo Qingtong's body. The opponent was testing him. The nine-blade assassin had seen the scene where he targeted this woman. Obviously, he was testing whether this woman could become his weakness. This nine-blade assassin deserved to die. Yi Qianxian's eyes turned cold. The blood-colored saber light in his eyes was indescribably biting cold. Master. Bei Qing and Feng Yu, who had been pretending to be invisible at the side and pretending not to see what their master was doing, hurriedly rushed back and stood in front of Yi Qianren. Little Pig also ran back to Luo Qingtong's side. He lowered his head and slipped into Luo Qingtong's sleeve. Yi Qianxian glanced at it coldly and pretended not to see it. Initially, he wanted to capture this pig because he didn't believe what it said. He wanted to interrogate it about the existence of the ancient medicinal formula. But now that he had found this woman who could heal him, it didn't matter whether he could get the ancient prescription or not. Most importantly, this pig was the woman's contracted beast. Yi Qianxian naturally wouldn't allow Luo Qingtong's strength to be damaged. For this, he was willing to let Little Pig go. Know your place and protect her well. Don't try to play any tricks. Your little tricks are nothing in front of me. His cold voice resounded in Little Pig's mind. The latter was already frightened to begin with. When he suddenly heard the voice in his heart, his forehooves instantly went soft and he knelt down in Luo Qingtong's sleeve. Don't ask me why I'm so cowardly. This man, he wasn't an ordinary person at all. Otherwise, why would Little Pig avoid him like the plague and even sign a heaven and earth contract with Luo Qingtong? Little Pig couldn't help but nod his head when he saw that this man had no intention of capturing him. Isn't it just taking care of this woman and not playing any tricks? I promise I'll do it. In any case, it's fine as long as I play tricks on others. Moreover, Luo Qingtong isn't someone to be trifled with. She's almost as perverted as this man. In front of her, it was completely eaten alive, okay? Didn't you see that I was used as a shield again? Little Pig's tactfulness caused the coldness in Yi Qianxian's eyes to lessen. He lowered his head and looked at the woman in his arms. Chapter 234. Woman. Yi Qianxian narrowed his eyes and glanced at the nine-blade assassin's attack. He pulled Luo Qingtong in front of him and kissed her heavily. Before Luo Qingtong could react, she was forced to accept the kiss. Hey! You! After the kiss, Luo Qingtong didn't have time to ask what this man meant. She saw him push her hand away. Woman, I'll let you escape again this time. As Yi Qianxian spoke, he put a ring on Luo Qingtong's left ring finger. Ka! The moment the ring was put on Luo Qingtong's left ring finger, she felt a sharp pain. The ring was stuck on Luo Qingtong's finger. Hiss! Luo Qingtong hissed softly. Before she could reach out to touch the ring, Yi Qianxian's voice sounded. Don't waste your time. This ring has absorbed your essence blood. Without my essence blood as a guide, it will never fall off your finger. The man's voice was faint, but Luo Qingtong felt her teeth itch. She knew that this man wouldn't let her go so easily. But if you put a tracking device, then so be it. Why did you put a ring on it? And it just so happened to be on her left ring finger. Did he know what it meant to put a ring on her finger? Luo Qingtong felt depressed. But she didn't know how surprised Bei Qing and Feng Yu were when they saw Yi Qianxian put the ring on her finger. No, it couldn't be described as surprised. It should be described as horrified. 9 Phoenix Ring. Seeing the ring on Luo Qingtong's left ring finger, the two gasped in their hearts at the same time. They looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. 9 Phoenix Ring. That was the 9 Phoenix Ring that represented the future mistress of the house. Master gave it away just like that? Or did he give it to the evil doctor? The two of them panted heavily in their hearts. They didn't know what to say. Especially when they saw Luo Qingtong looking at the 9 Phoenix Ring with a look of disgust, as if she couldn't wait to pull it out. Their hearts were in a mess. The evil doctor doesn't know how precious this 9 Netherworld Phoenix Ring is. If this ring was taken out, who knew how many people would fight over it? How many people would die of envy and jealousy? This 9 Netherworld Phoenix Ring not only represented the supreme position of the future mistress, but also represented supreme authority. With this 9 Netherworld Phoenix Ring, the evil doctor's identity would be as honorable as his master. At the same time, all the forces under the master's name would be mobilized according to her wishes. Seeing her would be like seeing the master. How could the evil doctor look so disdainful towards such a ring? Bei Qing and Feng Yu's lips twitched violently. Luo Qingtong didn't notice their expressions. After discovering that the ring really couldn't be taken off, she gritted her teeth and said to Yi Qianxian, "Then I thank Lord for his reward." Don't think that she really had no other way. After she left, she would study it carefully. She must take off this damn ring. No need to thank me. Seeing this woman's deflated appearance, Yi Qianxian was in a good mood. At this moment, 9 Blades Killer made a move. Yi Qianxian's expression turned cold. He raised his hand and pushed Luo Qingtong away. "Woman, let's go." You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.